Purdy takes it, hands off to McCaffrey off the left side, breaks a tackle, touchdown! San Francisco!
Christian McCaffrey off to the right side, north and south, gets a big block from Brendel, and then just shakes off the leg tackle.
Let's go.
Let's
the
do
NFC
this.
Championship game. We've got the sun. The sun is out. That is good. No glove decisions for Brock Purdy. It's the Lions. It's the 49ers. Thanks so much for joining us. If you are in the tailgate lot, you got about another hour. They open up the tailgate lots in an hour. However you're watching the game, thank you so much for tuning in to KNBR 680, the sports leader, John Lund, Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown. Over the next few hours, we will get you ready for the NFC Championship game. I've been out there for a little bit. It is a dry track. That is good news. Talk a ton about the Lions, ton about the 49ers. But, guys, let's just start. How you feeling today? How do you feel about the game? I know we felt good about the Packers. That one's a little too close for comfort. But, Dennis, I'll start with you just as a former player. Players are coming in. I'm sure the heartbeat's going a little fast today.
Yeah,
but they're used to it. 4 of the last 5, and this is their third in a row.
Yeah, and, this is exciting stuff, right? I mean, this is what you kind of work for. It's your heart rate's going. I mean, you haven't slept last night. You're done with the films. You're done with the playbook. Now it's time to kind of show it on the football field. And this is what you kind of work for. You got one football game now. You have an opportunity to play in the biggest game. You get a bye week. Then you go to Vegas and get a chance to compete for championship. So, I mean, this team has been in it for what, the last 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, it seems like.
3 in a row.
Yeah. So, you know what to expect. And all you got to do is go and execute.
The last because they lost the last 2, and I was out there, of course, in Philly for last year's where it was over before it started. We lose the one in Los Angeles a couple of years ago. I was rewatching that game the other day, by the way. You forget how much time was on the clock when Jaquiski Tartt dropped the could have been interception, right? There was a lot of there was a lot of other things. There was a lot of time left. The fact of the matter is, when you go to 3 straight and you've lost the first 2. And after what happened last week, I mean, every 49er fan's feeling like nothing's guaranteed. As confident as we were going into last week, nobody feels like anything's guaranteed. But because of the potential opponents in the Super Bowl, because of what happened last week, because of the unknown element of the Detroit Lions, for me, this might be the easiest game in the NFC, in my NFC Championship fan experience, to stay in the moment for. It's an all in the moment. I'm not thinking about Vegas. I'm not thinking about the next one because, one, that's going to be a tough game regardless of who it is. And I think this one's tough. We got to see them play better and differently than they did early in last week's game.
I feel great, though, because like you said, you were at the last one. I was there 2 years ago. And players, Dennis, talk about the empty feeling afterwards. I just remember because I had been at SoFi a couple of weeks earlier, and they pulled that game out to get into the playoffs, and you felt so good, and it was euphoric. And I was sitting there staring at the board the whole time, and kind of like you and I in Miami, Dennis, I was the last one there, and I could hear the rooms because you're up on this level where the coaches are and all this different stuff, and they're all whooping it up, and we're just sitting there talking about a loss, and on the big board at SoFi was NFC champion Rams, and there was confetti all over the field, and I'm sitting there for 3 hours staring at this confetti, listening to these people whoop it up, and the 49ers, they had a lead in the fourth. Jaquiski Tartt drops that interception, so you feel like, you should have won that game. Same thing in Miami. We caught the last media shuttle back. It was 4:00 in the morning, Miami time. And we had to sit there and try to soothe 49ers fans for hours on end. They were so close to winning that Super Bowl. So hopefully, and I don't know, Dennis, I'd have to ask you, it permeates through to the players, and this is not something that the Lions have much experience with. I mean, Jared Goff played in the Super Bowl and watched New England celebrate when they lost 13-3. But hopefully that feeling that inside where they go, we don't want it to be like the Super Bowl in Miami. We don't want it to be like LA. We don't want it to be like Philadelphia, where we were sitting watching the other team celebrate. And you got this thing at home, and there was a whole reason we talked about it being at home for this very reason. And there's no rain today. It's sunny. I was just sitting on the field. It's actually
warm out.
Hot.
Yeah, I had to take my jacket off. It's
and
nice
so, there are no excuses for the 49ers. You wanted it at home. It's at home. There's a team in the Lions. Goff did go to a Super Bowl, but by and large, they're inexperienced. You've been to 4 of the last 5 and 3 in a row. You're at home, good weather. There's no excuse for the 49ers not winning this game and moving on to Vegas.
Yeah, and the expectations got to be high. I mean, last week, the rain. I mean, the 49ers just didn't look very efficient on offense or defense until maybe the fourth quarter. Green Bay kind of outplayed this football team. So, I expect the 49ers, especially on offense, to be a little more efficient. Brock Purdy to be more efficient, with his decision-making and his accuracy throwing the football. So, I mean, there are no excuses. I mean, you're a favorite. You're at home. This is what you kind of want. And you got one game, and then you move on to the big game. So, I mean, I expect this team to come out. They got to come out fast because, Dan Campbell, I mean, he's a dog, and these guys can fight. He's going to have them fired up. So you got to get on top of this team fast, get a fast start. And you don't want to get into a dogfight with these guys because these guys can fight.
Bigger, well, I guess I don't want to say pressure, but like who has to perform bigger today? Is it Brock or is it the D-line?
I would say D-line. I mean,
of course
watching this D.
I wasn't asking Dennis. I was asking John, but I knew your answer, bro. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
But, I was upset last week. Watching this defensive line play last week, you gave up a lot of yards, and that's what you cannot do in a playoff football game. In this game, especially with Jared Goff, I mean, you can't allow Detroit to have a balanced attack against you. That play action is going to be big. You got to shut it down. You got to shut down the run. You got to make big Jared Goff beat you with his arm, which he can. But he's a guy who's going to stand in the pocket. You can get some sacks on him. So I think this D-line has to first focus on this run. They have to stop the run, not like last week. There was a great game plan. Green Bay had a great game plan against this 49ers defensive front. They just didn't show up until the fourth quarter.
Yeah, look, Detroit's going to have the same. They run the ball a ton of times. They actually mirror the 49ers offensively and how much they run and how effective they run. And so that's what it starts with. Jared Goff, and we'll throw this stat out a lot, but Jared Goff this year has almost a 110 rating indoors and an 82 rating outdoors. And so it is going to be a perfect game. He's played a lot at Levi's Stadium. He's 2-2 in his career, lost his last 5 against him, lost his last 2 at Levi's Stadium. But both teams are going to do the same thing. Both teams are going to say, okay, we're going to stop the run and make the quarterback beat us. Brock Purdy, to me, and one of the reasons why, just to explain this, why he struggles, I believe, so much in the rain versus getting this huge break today is we're looking at some clouds, but it's going to be a sunny day down here at Santa Clara, is because he anticipates the throws so much, he throws to spots. And so if you're not in that spot, and in the rain a lot of times you're not. Jawan Jennings slipped on a ball that clearly, and he's going to look really bad at times in the rain because a receiver is supposed to be in a certain spot. Well, in the rain, he's not going to be in that spot a lot of times. He's going to slip. He's not going to be as fast. He's not, you're reading something and he just can't get there in time. So a lot of those throws by Brock Purdy on the national media, they said, well, he looks terrible. He's not throwing until that final drive where we went 6 of 7. On a dry field where you're supposed to be, more times than not, if you're the 49ers, you are on that spot. And so that's a massive advantage for the 49ers coming in today. And the number one story is obviously Debo. Now, again, here's an interesting thing. He hurts the shoulder. Now he's not even on the injury report. Now, to me, some of that is gamesmanship, where you're going to say, look, he's not even hurt, so you want to go after that shoulder, fine. Now, still Detroit is, and you know this. They're going to go after that shoulder. Yeah. They're going to make him early on. If he is healthy, like they're saying he's not, and he's not injured, not on the injury report, I would expect Debo, honestly, to get the ball in the first play of the game. Some sort of, Christian goes left, Debo goes right out of the backfield, or a smoke screen, tunnel screen, something quick to Debo to illustrate to the Lions, he's here, and he's not a decoy. He's going to play, and he's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought that we expected a huge workload for him last week. We saw a couple of touches for him immediately, and then he kind of gets that gang tackle. They initially rule it a head injury, and then he comes back and then immediately goes back out with the shoulder injury, they say. And I guess Kyle was saying it's a pain tolerance thing, so maybe it simply is, or maybe it doesn't need the same level of care that it had when he had the 3 weeks off during the bye, because he had surgery then. He had like a micro surgery going on then to fix a hairline fracture in the shoulder. So if it's a pain tolerance thing from a procedure he had early in the year, and they were saying, it's a similar injury but not quite as bad, again, if he's out there, you can't take you can't take away the physicality from Debo. It's like George Kittle. It's like if he's out there, he's going to be playing balls to the wall. He's going to be playing with his hair on fire. Debo's looking to run through guys. He's not going around guys. I don't think that they play anything carefully. I think when guys are available in this offense, Kyle says, great, we're using him. Sure, he can be a decoy, but everybody's a decoy because of how many you have. I think the workload for him is big. Yeah.
Because with a decoy, because Greg was saying that this week, they're going to know early on. Yeah. If you're a decoy and Debo's on the field, but he's not getting the ball, I mean, defensively, isn't that pretty easy to figure out early in the game? Okay, he's on the field to try to scare us, but clearly he's not Debo.
Right. And Debo's such a big part of this offense, especially in the middle of the football field. I mean, all these guys, everyone's a decoy, right? I mean, you want a defense to focus on a Christian McCaffrey or Brandon Ayuk or George Kittle because somebody else is going to be wide open. So everybody's kind of a decoy. But I think you understand, if you watch tape on the 49ers, you understand that Debo is a big part of this offense. I mean, he sets the tone. I mean, the way he plays, And this is the playoffs. I mean, this is it. This is the NFC Championship game. Pain tolerance or not, Debo's going to be ready to play in this football game. I mean, whatever it is you got to do, pad it up, shoot it up, whatever it is. I hope he has a mentality. He's going to go out. He's going to play. He's going to play with everything he's got. He's going to play how Debo plays, kind of that bully mentality. He's going to set the tone on offense. So, decoy. I think all these guys are decoys because you want a team to look at a player like a George Kittle and say, I'm going to double team him. I'm going to move my entire defense so George Kittle can't beat you. Because then you got Brandon Ayuk, you got McCaffrey out the backfield, and you got Debo.
Early in the year, we talked about the Lions' hot start, and we saw them coming last year, and we'll get more into their skill position players. I want to talk about that when we come on back, because I think they match up, comparably to that of like if you were going to say the 49ers are the class of the league, I would say that these guys are right up near them. Jahmyr Gibbs, as well as David Montgomery. Dennis, you talked about stopping the run, especially with all the play action. I'll give you a note about that when we come on back, too. Then we got from Greg Cosell earlier this week, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 119 catches and 1,500 yards receiving this year. How do you stop him? Zone coverage, he's eaten that up this season. Sam Laporta is their version of George Kittle, 86 catches, 889, and 10 touchdowns himself. So we'll get into more of the skill position groups and what this game could look like. It is Championship Sunday. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund hanging out with you here from Levi Stadium. We got the AFC Championship kicking off in just under an hour now, and the Niners coming your way at 3:30. We'll be with you until 2 o'clock when we hand it over to Greg Papa and Tim Ryan to take you up till kickoff and through the game. More to come here from Levi Stadium. It's the NFC Championship, and it's only here on the Sports Leader.
Are people tired of a good underdog story? Like, do people not want to see a normal person succeed? Like, I'm sorry that he's not like 6'4", 240 pounds, can throw it 80 yards, and has all these rushing highlights. Like, he plays our system perfectly. You see him; he takes the perfect footwork. He has great arm. He has great eyesight. He doesn't just throw checkdowns the entire way up and down the field. He tries to force the ball downfield to try to get the ball into the hands of Debo, Ayuk, and me. Hey, and if that's not open, Christian McCaffrey's underneath for a 10-yard gain. He does all the things that you want of a quarterback, and people just don't want to see that for some reason right now. And hey, it is what it is. And I think I know Brock, and I think Brock's just going to keep playing the quarterback position at a super high level. And I don't think he listens to the noise, so people will just keep talking, and it is what it is.
As a voice of 49ers tight end George Kittle, they're defending his quarterback, which seems like a lot of people had to do from all of the flack that Brock Purdy caught after the performance in last week's game. And again, a lot of guys came to his defense, and a lot of former players came to his defense. I just think it's okay to say, yeah, he didn't play well, and then he did when they needed him to play well. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lem with you. Ahead of the NFC Championship here from Levi Stadium, Niners and the Detroit Lions coming your way at 3:30 right here on KNBR. We are streaming, by the way, twitch.tv/thesportsleader, YouTube, the KNBR app, KNBR.com, Twitter, all that good stuff. You can check in with the 49er faithful in the chat room there. I want to ask you guys about what we just heard George Kittle talking about there with Brock, because the skill position guys are what we constantly use, or what is constantly being used to discredit and to sort of hand demerits to Brock Purdy, as though he's not as good as a quarterback because he's got these weapons around him. Dennis, when you see what he did at the end of the game, I mean, 24 points still, by the way. So for as poorly as they played last week, they still put up 24 points. He marches them downfield in the 2 games this year, and I think we would agree, and I think we talked about it at the end of last game, the game against the Browns and this most recent Packers game, I think he played worse in those games than he did against the Ravens on Christmas Day. I know he threw a bunch of picks, but he was far worse in the rain. And even in that first rain game, he marches him down with an opportunity to kick a field goal and win the game. So even in games where he's been bad, he hasn't broken them to the point where he could have, had they had some balls picked off last week. I don't think he was as detrimental to them last week as we made it out to be. The team in general didn't play well.
Yeah, and we can talk about, I think there's 2 picks that Green Bay just dropped. I think one could have been a pick.
Would have been the difference,
easily.
yeah, for sure.
That
Brock said it bothered him. Brock said it got in his head early in the game, so that was part of it.
Yeah, but here's the deal. I mean, another check. I mean, he's in the playoffs, and he brings the team, in the fourth quarter, you drive your team down the field, and you score, and you end up winning the football game. So, I mean, Brock Purdy has checked all the boxes. And I think last week was a big one. I mean, in the rain, a playoff football game, and you're playing from behind, and you go down the field and you score, and you do what you're supposed to do. So, I mean, people can talk about Brock Purdy, but he's been a good quarterback. He's been a great quarterback. Historic season as far as his numbers go. So, I mean, if he continues to play, like I said, I think last week I think the weather played a big part of that football game, the way he played. I expect him to be very efficient today, especially against the secondary. I think last week they gave up, 350 yards or something like that.
Yeah.
So I expect him to be very efficient today. You go out, he's got his weapons. We talk about managing, but that's what he's supposed to do, get the ball to his playmakers. I expect him to have a good game today.
A few things. First and foremost, I don't care what anybody national says about this guy, because they don't know football a lot of times. I was listening to another national show driving down here, and the fact is they just don't watch the games. I don't know. But then you get the national guys that are bitching and moaning about these guys. Ryan Clark has got into the crosshairs, and Dan Orlovsky and guys like that. And I don't care what they think, because we know. And look, I'm not into excuses. I'm into explanations. I think, like I said, the receivers weren't in the spots. Brock is an anticipatory thrower, and that's what happened last week, but he's got to be good. But having said all those things and being overly simplistic here, when the 49ers win in his career regular season, Brock has 41 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. And when they lose, he's 3 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So it's really, really simple. When Brock Purdy plays well, the 49ers play well like most quarterbacks, and when they don't, he doesn't. Now, is he doing it on his own? No. I mean, we have to look at all those games. How did they run the ball? Who was in? Who was out? All those kind of things. But again, he will deserve criticism today if he plays poorly, because there is no excuses. The corners for the Lions stink. The last 2 weeks, Puka Nacua had 176, and last week Mike Evans could have had 200. He had 140-something. So I expect Brandon Ayuk to be huge. The reason why they are so good against the run is because the first move for the linebackers is always into the gap, play action stuff. As long as they're able to run the football at a relative decent amount, which again, last week, Rachaad White for the Buccaneers, for as good as they say their run defensive is, Rashad White was over 5 yards a carry. Kyron Williams the week before for the Rams had success running the football. All of a sudden, they have success. Play action. The first move for the linebackers is always up. That's just what they teach. So right behind that is a big area in the middle. What does Brock Purdy do very well? He layers the ball in the middle of the field as well as anybody. So George Kittle, tight ends against the Lions this year have been huge. I was talking to a friend of mine in Seattle. They have 3 crummy tight ends. They had 133 yards in a Week 2 win against the Lions. Tight ends have big days. 1 or 2 receivers going to have a big day. They can mix it up. They should score at least 30 points. It's going to come down to what the defense can do against a really talented Lions offense. But there are holes in this defense. The offensive line's got to have a big day. But it's not all on Brock. But the stat tells you that if Brock struggles turning the ball over, the 49ers struggle. If he plays well, they play well. And on a sunny, dry field today, Brock Purdy should have a day against this defense.
It's a great breakdown of what's going on with the defense for the Detroit Lions. You mentioned the corners, and that's something I want to kind of get into here because the middle of the field is something we saw Brock try to use early in last week's game. Even the play where Debo gets hit and he goes down, he's coming across the middle. We saw the same thing happen with George Kittle coming across the middle, and a bunch of those potential interceptions, or 2 of them, were a couple of high throws too, where Brock just, like you're talking about, timing and the moisture on the ball and all that. But in terms of getting after these corners on the outside, we saw C.J. Gardner-Johnson coming at Debo earlier this week as well. They're getting mouthy with each other. In terms of their physicality, Dennis, have you seen them play on the outside?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
everybody's saying this is the softest element of their defense is on the outside and in the secondary.
Right, on the perimeter. But, John made a good point. I mean, if you watch Detroit play, these linebackers trigger fast.
Super aggressive.
I mean, they get out. I mean, that's just the way this team plays. And it's probably the way because of their head coach. They play aggressive and they want to be physical. So I think that middle of the field, outside's going to be there, but that middle of the field, if you set it up with your run game, that play action is going to be there in the middle and on the outside.
And you heard the breakdown of Kyle Shanahan's offense and the motions that he uses from Dan Campbell this week. John, did you hear that when he was talking about the stuff that he does? It was a great breakdown, and he's like kind of putting it in layman's terms here for us to understand what it is that Kyle does to confuse them. But he was a tight end. He was in these offenses. He understands how this works. And theirs is a good one. They run out of their offense more play action from under center than any team in the league. And they'll try to use that a lot today, I think, to get outer linebackers to creep in and bite the way you're talking about so that they can get into some coverage and allow Amon-Ra to hit the middle of the field.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see just kind of, we're talking about it, we're just on the radio. These are coaches that watch the tape. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle that, how they control the middle of the football field because they know what the 49ers want to attack and they know that they're weak on the outside. It's going to be interesting to see how they adjust to that, especially with those linebackers today.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, I know we said this last week, but if the Niners can have even an acceptable running game, then the play action works. And it's the same thing. Like you said, Detroit loves to work off play action. Both quarterbacks have astronomical numbers in that sense. And they like to do the same thing. You got 2 tight ends, both from Iowa. By the way, we talked about hitting Debo's shoulder. They're going to be hitting Sean Laporta low. I mean, he's got a massive knee brace on his knee. By the way, Zach Ertz is not going to be activated. I had heard earlier today, so not going to have the Bay Area tight end there. But Laporta's had a knee injury, but he was really effective last week against Tampa Bay. Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's going to be an issue. I mean, both teams have issues because, look, they've got number 20 circled. Ambry Thomas is circled. Yep. And so Diamondor Lodore has played amazing. Ward has played amazing. They'll go to a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, and it's tough to like people were talking early in the week. Can Ward travel with Amon-Ra St. Brown? Not really, because what he does is they put him in a ton of motions. They'll put him in the slot. They'll take him out of the slot. They're going to find Ambry Thomas, just like the 49ers are going to go after the corners for the Lions. So there's a lot of similarities on both teams. Both want to run. Both want to go play action. Both want to stop the run. All those kind of things. A lot of teams can say those same things, but they have similar guys in terms of a lot of good offensive players. They got 2 running backs in the Lions. Obviously, McCaffrey for the 49ers. They'll go 3 wide sets. They both have really good tight ends from Iowa. It's just going to come down to really, and this is what Dennis loves. It comes down to trenches. It really does. Yeah. Stopping Aiden Hutchinson 97, stopping Bosa 97. I mean, there's just a lot of similarities in what both teams are trying to do.
Would you say they're evenly matched? Would you say this? I mean, you don't think about Detroit being evenly matched with the 49ers.
I wouldn't
just like you just say that. But they're kind of close to
I think the skill positions match up in a
to a point.
To a point. And then I think you get to a spot where head-to-head, like if you were, I asked Tom this question earlier this week. If you took the 4 skill positions from the 49ers, McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle, and you took their 4, Laporta, Montgomery, Gibbs, and Amon-Ra, and you did a draft and you said, I'm going to take the top 4 across the board. I want my number 4, whoever the 4 are, regardless of team. How many would come from the Niners? How many would come from the Lions? I think a lot of people would have 4-1 Niners or 4-0 Niners or 3-1 Niners, and might take Amon-Ra or Gibbs or somebody like that. But so I think they match up that way. But on defense, while the Niners, it's not their calling card this year. It's not been as good as it was last year. It's been close, but they haven't gotten to the quarterback as many times. I do think that the Niners' defensive line is far better than that of the Lions line. We know the secondary is better, but if you're going to attack a weak spot,
the linebackers,
it's exactly totally. But it's a similar weak spot in that if they're going to go after Ambry Thomas, he's had some good games and he's had a stretch of rough games, and last week was tough.
Well,
last week was tough for him.
This is similar to last week to me, is that, again, you look at the reason why everybody likes the 49ers in this game is that if you just say, look, who's going to play their A game? If you assume the 49ers are not going to beat themselves, which at times last week against the Packers they did, and then they pulled it out. The Packers gave them some opportunities, dropping a couple of interceptions, obviously going for it on 4th and 1, where it looked like actually on 3rd and 2 they had actually gotten it. They could have replayed it, but they tried to go fast. They miss a field goal, those kind of things. They allowed the 49ers. But the 49ers played a poor game, whether you want to talk about the weather or anything else. But if both teams play their A game, the 49ers are going to win this game by 10 to 14 points.
Yeah,
but that's the whole point of it, is who makes less mistakes. I mean, again, it's overly simplistic and we have hours to talk about, but it really comes down to playing your A game and not making mistakes.
And the defense, by the way, in the second half of last week's game was not, when you go back and look at it, I went back and watched the second half, the defense held up. I mean, they forced that punt, the 3 play in the second half. They also have the missed field goal where they marched down 67 yards. But after the second touchdown and the 2-point conversion in the second half, you go 4 plays, interception, 3 plays, punt, 6 plays, missed field goal, 4 plays, pick, game over. The defense held up on those final 4 drives.
Especially in the red zone.
Yeah. I mean, again, the Niners did not play well.
The red zone was great.
Just for 24 points. Yeah, the 4th down stop as well after Aaron Jones didn't pick up.
Look, it comes down to you can't have those big alleys, because what's going to happen is Detroit is going to test that early and often. Can we do the same thing that we saw Aaron Jones do, especially on the 53-yarder?
Yeah.
They have got to shore that thing up, and because there wasn't just holes, there were wide gaps on those things. And Dennis, you know this better than I do. It's a lot of it is because it's a wide 9 split, so those ends are way out wide. And the way they teach it is, let's get up the field. Well, then that's going to give itself gaps. So there's got to be a way, right, Dennis, when you're thinking to yourself, okay, I know that our job is to get up the field at all costs, but if they're going to keep running these things, I got to keep an eye, almost like a screen pass, right? I got to keep an eye on whether they're going to try to open these lanes wide, because they cannot allow that all day long.
You got to squeeze the lanes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all in technique. You got to squeeze the lanes. You're wide. The run gaps are wider. You just got to become a wider person. I mean, you got to defend those gaps, and you saw it last week. What happens if you don't?
Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, John Lum with you. It is Championship Sunday, the NFC Championship coming your way at 3:30. We'll hand it over to Greg and Tim at 2 o'clock to do a little walkthrough of the season and then get you ready for kickoff between the Niners and the Lions. When we come on back, let's get more voices involved in this conversation. Kevin Harlan was on KNBR earlier this week. You guys had a conversation with him, right? John, and Papa did. So we'll play that conversation with Kevin Harlan. Then we'll talk more about what Charlie Batch and Herman Moore told us earlier this week about the Detroit Lions offense. Still more to come here. Levi Stadium, Dennis Brown, Adam Copeland. It's the NFC Championship. John Lund's here too on the Sports Leader.
Yeah, I mean, we've had success on the road a variety of times throughout the year, and even like you said, going into last year. And it'll be another hostile environment. It'll be another great team. It'll be another complete team that we're going to go in there and do our best to knock them off. And it'll be a fun game.
As the voice of Bay Area's own Jared Goff, of course, the former number 1 pick out of Cal, longtime L.A. Ram, and he's the starting quarterback today for the Detroit Lions. I said that Kevin Harlan joined John and Greg this week. I was wrong. He joined Murph and Marcus on the morning show, and Kevin Harlan started the interview giving his thoughts on what the value of Debo Samuel is to the 49ers offense.
Morning, guys. Thanks for having me on. Can't wait to get out there and watch the Niners. Kind of watching closely what's going to happen to Debo Samuel. You know, you get to these big games, and we were in Buffalo last week, and the Chiefs and Bills, and week before we were at Arrowhead when it was minus 27 with the wind chill with the Dolphins and Tua against Mahomes and the Chiefs. And when you lose a player, and the Dolphins were down 5 significant defensive players, and the Bills were down 3 significant defensive players, it affects a game. More so, I think, than the regular season where you can sometimes gloss over, hide, camouflage absences. In the playoffs, everything is so exposed, and a missed component for an engine makes the engine just not go, as we know, and it's the same in the NFL. You're relying on all 11 of those guys on either side of the ball to play off each other, and that's where they gain their confidence. When you put in a backup or a third-string guy, it can have an effect, and I've seen it now 2 weeks in a row. I've seen it forever, but it just became even more apparent in the 2 games I've just done that, man, you lose a big factor, and it becomes a factor.
Wow, so the Debo story is going to control the week, and we'll find out more today. And obviously, we saw the Niners get sort of off kilter without him. That said, Kevin, I know you were doing the Buffalo game, so I don't know if you had a chance to see the 49ers on Saturday night. I know you're doing your research here. But switching from Debo to Brock Purdy, and then he became, you know, there were national commentators that had critical comments on Monday. We spent the first 2 days of this week talking about him. But your take, Kevin, just in what you've seen from this guy, it was only a year ago that he was finishing up this Mr. Irrelevant ride to the NFC Championship, then the elbow surgery, then the season where he was an MVP consideration, then the terrible first 3 quarters against Green Bay, only to lead the drive. That's a lot. That's a lot I just threw at you there. So where do you think Brock Purdy comes out on the end? Is he still one of those guys who hasn't proven himself, and he's not Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, and he should be push him to the back of the line, or are you a believer?
I'm stunned that the media has, well, no, you know what? Knowing what the media is like, it doesn't stun me now that I say it. But it's ridiculous that they've got all this they heap on this kid who is a young quarterback who had come off the bench middle of last season, resuscitated the team, gave him stability at the position, gave him stability coming into the season, sans Tom Brady. As that story has come out, I guess, from Brock. Excuse me, I'm drinking coffee here and talking to you. That's not a good combination. But my point is that everybody is jumping on this kid's back when we should just be saying, isn't it amazing that a kid who was picked as the last of the draft a couple of years ago, who wasn't really on the radar for most of the NFL, and that the 49ers saw something in him in what he did in college, and he's come in here with not a flare, not a single, spark, and stepped in to this traditional team with, a great surrounding cast, and has done as well as he has done. Like, I think it's amazing. And I think that people, when they start talking about him in the MVP, and then he had the trough and the team struggled at they lost 3 in a row, got out of that, finished strong, heading into the playoffs. They're not cutting this kid a break. I don't know if they feel like, well, he was born on second base or he's born on third base, beginning with a team like that with everything in place. Yeah. And he's answering the bell like he is exceeding anybody's. Like, are you kidding me? He has exceeded anybody's expectation. And yet people are saying, calling him a game manager, calling him whatever they're going to call him, like get off his back. Just give him some breathing space. He's incredibly humble. He gets the position. He knows what's been thrown at him. And yet we've got these guys talking on TV and on radio. I don't believe he's in his second year, for God's sake. He does. No one's comparing him to Mahomes or Jackson or Allen or Stafford, or any of these other guys. They're saying, how about this coaching staff? How about that scouting staff finding this kid, an afterthought to everybody else in the league, and they bring him in, they coach him up, they put him in, he answers the bell, he doesn't screw it up, he takes him to the NFC Championship last year, and I was doing it again. It's amazing to me how everyone wants these hot takes and make these definitive statements on a kid like this who is still so young in the most complex and most stressful position of any sport worldwide, with a team that is constantly in focus, with a history and a litany of great quarterbacks, and yet these guys come out and they criticize him for what? What he's doing is remarkable. It's stunning, and that's my view on it.
I love that, by the way. That's a manifesto I'm going with.
Yeah, it's a fantastic breakdown, Kevin. And to your point, he was literally the only quarterback that played last weekend in the playoffs that wasn't a first-round draft pick. And I get this feeling around the league that people just kind of have this disbelief that a guy that was Mr. Irrelevant and could be playing at an MVP level. So, Kevin, in your opinion, do you think the perception would be different about Brock Purdy if he was a first-round draft pick?
Oh, there'd be no doubt, because we'd hold him like we do with Stroud, and the poster kid of that is Bryce Young in Carolina. He just took arrows from every direction he looked. He was the one overall pick. He was picked ahead of Stroud, and they're going to be joined at the hip the rest of their careers. One was picked 1, one was picked 2. It's like Manning and Ryan Leaf. Like one guy was a complete failure in the NFL. And the other guy is going to be, is in Canton right now, and a Super Bowl winner twice with 2 different teams, and so Young in his position, has just taken every shot imaginable, and the team was bad, and he was not good, but he had nothing to work around him, and I think people are saying, well, if he were in San Francisco and if Brock Purdy were in Carolina, and you start switching around, would it be? Listen. Playing in this game, Green Bay is better than anybody thought, getting better and riding incredible momentum coming into that game. The difference between the good and the bad in this league is minimal, and all these guys are working as hard as any 49er or Packer or Cowboy or Bill. And so you've just got to take into respect that what he's doing individually at that position with the Niners is just off the charts, and if he was the Cowboys quarterback, he'd probably be under the same kind of scrutiny. But I just think we're expecting so much of these young players at such an early age with such little experience, and that when they falter a game, it's done. We told you he wasn't even worth being picked as the last guy in the draft.
Well,
and then it's nuts. It's just crazy.
Kevin, he can't be the Cowboys quarterback because he made it to the NFC Championship. Oh, that's my joke. That's my joke. All right. Okay, Kevin. So we have you here, and we sure do appreciate you spending a couple minutes, and you're going to be at Levi's on Sunday at 3:30. It's going to be amazing on the Westwood One National Call. Everybody's going to be listening. So the other team, we can't let you go. So we've been, it's been very interesting for us because the Lions, we can attack this from any number of angles. The historical angle, the Jared Goff angle, what Dan Campbell has done with that team, then just the X's and O's of their rushing offense with Jahmyr Gibbs, and of course the sort of the sleepy pass rush they have that nobody talks about with Aiden Hutchinson, what Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta bring to the table. There's a lot going on, and it feels like America's behind the Lions. And if they weren't playing the Niners, I'd probably be behind the Lions. But it's kind of weird the Niners are the villains this week, Kevin. What is your read on this whole Detroit Lions story? Any one of those angles that intrigues you the most?
Well, they're good, and I've had them 3 times, and I had them opening night against the Chiefs, and they beat them in Arrowhead, and they have continued that narrative throughout the season. Quarterback is solid and calm and is not an issue. They got 2 of the best running backs on one team in the league. Their line is outstanding when healthy. They are losing a guard. That's something to watch. Receiving-wise, I think they've got depth with one of the elite receivers in the league in St. Brown. Defensively, getting Gardner Johnson back in the secondary was huge for them. He's one of the best. He played for Philadelphia last year. He knows what's around every corner and down every road. I think Detroit is everything that you think they are, and they will give the Niners everything they're expecting. I think it'll be a terrific game, and because I'm doing it, I would never pick, who I think. But like the Niners, they have done an outstanding job drafting, developing, and playing their guys that they've either signed off the street or taken in the draft, like the Niners have. I mean, very similar. Smart front offices. They put the money where it matters. They've done it the right way. They've built with what they've been given. When they found the quarterback, that was the last piece. Then they've been able to. If you don't have the quarterback, you've got nothing. And when they got Goff, who is traded for Stafford, that raised eyebrows. But Goff was exactly what they needed at that time as they were going through it, and they got some equity from it aside from Goff, and they've used that to their advantage. So I think the Lions are going to be a fierce team to play, home or the road. I don't think the road matters. We just saw it with Kansas City this past weekend in one of the toughest places to win. They'll give the Niners everything that they can handle, and they may be they're only the sentimental favorite because they've not been there since '91, and no one thinks anything of the Lions. And here they've come back, and everybody, and there's not a Cinderella here either. This is a team that deserves to be there, but they've got that Cinderella feel to them because they've not been there for so long. But what they've done this year, at the end of last year, they've won like 22 of 29 games since the middle of last season. They're every bit of what we think they are.
Wrapping it up here with Kevin Harlan on the Uma guest line. And Kevin, the last thing I wanted to ask you is about a matchup that I'm going to be paying attention to this weekend, and it's where Aiden Hutchinson lines up, whether it's across from Trent Williams or Colton McKivitz. Break down what you think of Aiden Hutchinson and how disruptive he could be this weekend against the 49ers.
Even if he doesn't get a sack, he's going to draw their attention. So on that game plan, they're drawing up for that line. And, do they have a tight end, Kittle or whoever, Warner, come over and chip? Does a running back have to be always conscious of which side Hutchinson is lining up? Does he stay on one side? Does he revolve around? Does he go 3 technique or does he go outside 5? Like where is he going to be? How are they going to use him? It seems to me like Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, has been a good week-to-week defensive preparer. And while the numbers are kind of all over the place, it's because he is tailoring that defense for what that offense they're facing is going to do. So on some weeks, Hutchinson stays at one side, doesn't move. Others, he's all over the place, and I think that's what you'll see. But all defensive coordinators do that. So who he lines up against will always be a factor, but it's how the Niners are going to account for him that will be one of the great, as you mentioned, one of the great individual things to watch. But listen, there's just as much for them to worry about with Young and everybody else on the terrific Niners defensive line and your linebackers, Dre and Warner. I mean, like there are concerns all over the field for both teams. The matchup is terrific, and I can't wait to get out there and watch it. It's what is it, 3.5 or whatever? I never pay attention to this stuff, but someone did call me yesterday, and is the spread 3.5?
No, Kevin, it's 7. That's what's really intriguing to me.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I know.
I gotta be honest.
I know.
I don't see it. And I think it's going to be close.
I agree. Kevin, and we'll end it by telling you this. I got my weather app out. Levi Stadium, Sunday, 3:30, 70 degrees.
Thank God.
Leave your
I was at minus 27 at Arrowhead, and then it was like 11 with the wind blowing into our booth in Orchard Park. Now, I may not even I may be in T-shirt and drawers for that game up in that booth.
I need you in a cool Kevin Harlan golf shirt.
I've worn so many layers of clothes. I was like the Michelin tire guy. I could hardly move. I was like a mummy. And now I'm going to be in my drawers, my swimsuit. I'm ready. tank top, I am there.
Sun's out.
I am there.
Sun's out, guns out for Kevin Harlan.
Yeah, bring the
All
flip flops, Kevin.
Just pack a light duffel bag of T-shirts and come on out. All right. All right. So, all right, Kevin. We made your day. All right.
You have made my year. My God, that is great news.
Always great to have you on KNBR. Murph and Marcus in the morning. Thank you, Kevin. Have a great trip out and great call.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, guys. Always fun. Take care. Bye-bye.
That is the great Kevin Harlan. He'll have the call on Westwood One. He'll have the radio national call. And, of course, the Fox team is here. Is out on the field. They're getting all ready with the Fox team. So they are here as well. Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson and the whole crew will have the call for you on Fox. We'll continue as we get you ready for the 49ers and the Lions, the NFC Championship game live from here at Levi's Stadium. We'll talk about it all next, only here on the Sports Center.
Oh yeah, for sure, because we're here now for the third time, trying to get over the hump, trying to get to the other side. It's just the time's now, the time's right now. That's it.
As the voice of Brandon Ayuk, 49ers receiver, getting ready for the NFC Championship. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown. John Lund with you here live from Levi's Stadium. We are streaming twitch.tv/thesportsleader, YouTube, and of course on all KNBR platforms, KNBR.com, the app, Twitter, and all that good stuff. Why don't we get you a little Who's Hot? Sponsored by Valley Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I'll finish that for you in just a minute here. Who's Hot? Sponsored by Valley Heating, Cooling, Electrical, and Solar. Locally and family owned For 61 years. Dennis, I'll let you go first. Who's hot in your mind on the 49ers?
Oh, who is hot? Not last week's game, even though he played well last week. I think it's the gentleman we just heard from, Brandon Ayuk. And I was just sitting there trying to think, how many years has Brandon Ayuk been on this football team?
This is 4.
4 years. So this is
2020 was his rookie season.
Yeah, so this is what he does. I mean, this is all he knows, right? Playoffs, NFC championship games. So, he said it right there. The time is now. I mean, get over the hump. This is it. So, and I think he's had, truth be told, that he's had a pretty good football season. Had a great football season. So I think he's hot. I mean, I think last week, he had some key catches.
Big time. Yeah.
But it feels like, he's who's hot on this. I mean, he's been consistent on this 49ers offense.
Yeah, he gets lost in this. I think he's going to have a massive game, well over 100 yards. I think he has a real opportunity. Defensively, it's either who's hot or who has to be hot. And I just think really it has to be Chase Young. He just has to play a lot better. And I was really hyped when they got him. I thought he was going to have a really good – I think he was going to have a lot of impact opposite Nick Bosa. And early in he did. And they had two guys on Washington. They had Montez Sweat and they had Chase Young. And they traded them both. And Montez Sweat actually led two teams in sacks, the first guy to ever do it. He
Unbelievable.
Led Commanders, and he led the Bears. And I thought that kind of Chase Young was going to have that same kind of impact, and he didn't. He's the more heralded player. He was drafted higher. He was coming in opposite Nick Bosa. They're boys. I mean, I just thought he was going to have this massive impact, and he hasn't. But much like, and I know this is a stretch here, but we were angry with Barry Zito for years because he never lived up to the contract, and then he has a great postseason and everything is forgiven.
Game 5 in St. Louis, man, that's it.
And that's kind of what Chase Young can do here to a smaller extent. But it doesn't matter what you've done up to this point. He got crushed inside by wide receivers and tight ends on those open alleys going to the left side. And believe me, they love to pull Penny Sewell across the right tackle 58 from the right to the left, and they're going to do that. And it's going to be up to Chase Young because I think that Hargrave has a great opportunity. He's got a backup guard on him today on his side. Eric Armstead, I think he has an opportunity for his matchup. It's going to be tough. I think they're going to move. Actually, I think they're going to move Bosa from the right to the left a lot so he doesn't have to go up against Penny Sewell. But if they keep him on that side, then Sewell versus Bosa is going to be a big one. But to me, he's got a real opportunity. Everybody talks about Taylor Decker as the guy who did or didn't check in against the Cowboys. But the reality is he's a weak spot on a line that's pretty solid. And that whole left side now with a backup left guard and Taylor Decker on the left side, Chase Young has an opportunity to make up for last week. And a lot of times it's setting the edge. And Cleve Farrell is not a guy, we remember him from the Raiders, and he was drafted too early, and he's not a sack guy, but he does set the edge well. And so they do miss him in the run game. Chase Young has to do that. And then he also has to get some pressure on because, look, it doesn't matter if Penny Sewell or it doesn't matter if they put him over Decker, talking about Bosa. They're going to chip him. Every team does. They're going to bring a tight end over. They're going to use the back, whatever the case may be. They're going to do that. So he didn't have a sack in the playoffs last year. They didn't have a sack as a team, incredibly enough, against the Packers last week. They have got to get the entire defensive line getting hot today, but also Chase Young, especially against the run. He cannot play that same game that he played against the Packers.
Again, you go back to the NFC Championship 2021 was the last time that Nick Bosa had a sack in a playoff game. He did not have one in last year's postseason, hasn't had one yet, didn't get one last week. Did put a couple of hits on Jordan Love.
5 of the 6 hits.
5 of the 6 hits were from him, but still, they've got to get home. I'm going to go a couple of tip of the caps here as Tim put them down in our notes. The tip of the cap offensively for a hot week last week, Juwan Jennings. They don't win that game without Juwan Jennings stepping up. Yeah. I will say this, and we joked about it all week. Wasn't a huge fan of that run play with him out of the second half to start. Where apparently they were using 2 different armbands, and once Debo went out, that was a play where he would have been in that wide position, comes down, lines up in the backfield. I bet Juwan was like, oh, damn, they're going to hand me the ball. This is sweet. Did not work out. Anyway, Juwan Jennings had a really nice game for the Niners last week. Also, how about Demo Lenore? Demo Lenore targeted 5 times, 2 catches, only 8 yards, racked up 5 tackles. Was the best secondary player in last week's game for the Niners, where Ambry Thomas had a rough day. You had some slips from guys like Charvarius Ward. So, again, I'm going to go with Juwan Jennings, who had 5 catches, stepped up huge after Debo went down. And then George Kittle had a nice game, too. 4 catches, 81 yards, and that 32-yard touchdown catch, plus the big 17-yard grab on the game-winning drive by Chris Conley. Don't forget to tip of the cap to Chris Conley. I don't know if that's hot, but that was a good play. It was a hot play last week.
It was 2 in a row after the great Ayuk catch, and they went to him, and that was huge on that final drive to get those guys. But, that's what this game is about, to be honest, is that we don't know. Like a regular season game, a guy makes a play, whatever. This is historic, what is going to happen today, and nobody knows it better than you, Dennis. I mean, Dwight Clark was a really good player, and everybody liked him, and then the catch, and then he went into the stratosphere. I mean, we just don't know who's going to Eric Davis in your game against Dallas, and they won 38-28. You know, that pick early in the game changed everything. Eric Davis went from a really nice player in 49ers history to a guy that every time you think Eric Davis, you think of that pick six against Dallas early in that game to set the tone. I mean, that's what we're looking at today is who's going to make that play where years from now we're going to sit here and talk about Eric Davis or Dwight Clark or, I mean, go on down the line to make plays. Vernon Davis on the catch too.
Raheem Mostert, the 4 touchdowns and the 200. I mean, that's what we think about the last
37-8, the last time they won an NFC Championship game. So it's just, there's going to be guys who make those plays. Is Bosa going to get in there and knock one away from Goff that somebody's going to scoop and score? You know, one of those things, because one of the big things today, and we have a lot to talk about over these next few hours, but I think a start is huge. I thought it was last week against Green Bay. Green Bay took the ball, got a field goal, and then before the half, where Kyle likes to double up, they had a field goal blocked, and then they went 3 and out. That's the key to me, getting off, but those things, because look, the Lions have taken the ball 7 times, won the toss, the aggressiveness of Dan Campbell. They've taken the ball 7 times when winning a toss this year. And if they do that again like Green Bay, then you've got to go 3 and out there. You got to score before the half and score when you get the ball back in the third quarter. They didn't take advantage of that against the Packers. I thought they would. After the Green Bay won the toss and took the ball, Fred Warner was running off the field pumping his fist. And the thought is that Fred's saying, you know what, we're going to get a 3 and out here, and we're going to get the ball to start the second half. We already just won this football game. Well, Green Bay went down and got 3 points and got confidence and stayed in that game. And you could just sense the whole game. We all could. We all talked about it after the game.
Never felt like they were winning. Yeah.
Right. The Packers gained confidence early by getting the ball and scoring early and staying in the game early. The 49ers, this is like a bubble that you need to burst early on for the Lions. They're playing with a great deal of confidence. You're the 49ers. Punch them in the face. If they want the ball first, 3 and out, you go down, you score, and you go, this is a different animal, boys. They have got to get off to a great start today.
Yeah, it's got to be a hot start, and they've got a fast track, dry track. It's warm down here at Levi Stadium. We are a few hours away still as we're getting ready for the start of the AFC Championship game. Kickoff for the NFC title game at 3:30. We'll have it right here for you on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader. We'll catch up with the broadcast team a little bit later. We'll check in with our guy, Matt Mayoko. We'll probably check in with John Dickinson as well. Boots on the ground, super reporter. He's hanging around the stadium here, and we'll certainly catch up with him after the game. We're streaming twitch.tv/the Sports Leader, YouTube, all that good stuff. It's the Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund, Adam Copeland with you. More to come here from Levi Stadium. It's the NFC Championship on the Sports Leader.
Kneel it out now. Brock Purdy will take the snap from Jake Brendel.
Oh, my
One
goodness.
knee. Matt LaFleur will not even stop it.
My
He
goodness.
knows the fate. The 49ers have advanced on to the NFC Championship game for a third straight year.
Wow.
The fourth time in the last 5 years.
It's the NFC Championship game. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lunn hanging out with you. We're getting ready also for the start of the AFC title game, Chiefs and Ravens. And as I said earlier, guys, easy to stay in the moment for this one because it's either a date with Mahomes or a date with Lamar Jackson, the NFL's prospective MVP, as we are getting you ready for a 3:30 kickoff. Plenty to come here as we'll break down a lot of what's going on with the Niners and the Lions. First time we've seen them in this era. Niners actually haven't played the Lions since week 1 back in 2021. Am I right on that?
Yeah, Dre Greenlaw pick 6 on.
Yeah, that's right. Jared Goff. That's so funny because that was we talked about that. His career interceptions only had 3 entering last week, and then picks off Jordan Love twice. So that was also the game where Nick Bosa took the tape off. They pulled guys off the field. Then the Lions started to mount their comeback, and it was like, dude, we better get back out there. Speaking of Jared Goff, why don't we get into our quarterback comparison? Our QB comparison is, of course, sponsored. I'll tell you by who in just a moment. It's sponsored by Friedman's Appliance, proudly serving all of Northern California with a wide selection of luxury appliances. Visit them in Pleasant Hill to see the Friedman's difference, and sponsored by Dolce Vita Tequila, pure and simple. Why don't we start with Jared Goff, a guy who I think a lot of Bay Area fans know well. Obviously, a Marin Catholic guy, played at Cal, former number 1 overall pick. And how funny is that, by the way? A NFC Championship game between a former number 1 overall pick and the former last pick of the draft just last year. So obviously many years with the Rams and was sort of sent out to Detroit as it felt like to be kind of cast off. And this season had, ironically, an extremely similar numbers-wise year to Matt Stafford, and then beats Matt Stafford in the divisional round and make sure they're on marching. Was that divisional round? No, that's the wild card weekend. Wild card weekend. They beat the Rams, eliminate them. Otherwise, Niners might have seen the Rams had it not been for the Packers. Anyway, thoughts on Jared Goff, his season, the quarterback we're going to see today. Is he any different than the guy we saw a few years ago in Los Angeles?
I think it's a different team. I think he's played probably his best football. What's he been in the league? 8 years or something like that. He's a solid quarterback. I mean, there's a reason why he was such a high draft pick. He's prone to throw some picks. He's a guy that's going to throw from the pocket. He's a tall dude. He's not going to run around that much. There's no threat with his legs. He's efficient. He's got a strong arm. If you like we saw last week with Jordan Love, if he has the opportunity to sit in pocket, he can pick you apart. So you got to get after him. He's going to be 5-6 yards behind the center there in the pocket. There's going to be some opportunities to get some hits on him. So it goes back to the D line. It's going to fall on Nick Bosa, Chase Young, guys in the middle, Hargrave, Armstead, to get after him, collapse the pocket. To put some pressure on him because he doesn't like the pressure. He's not going to run. He's not going to run around that much. But he will pick you apart if he has an opportunity to throw the ball.
Statistically, he's lost 5 in a row to the 49ers, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Here's the big thing to me, and this is this season, indoors, which they've played the majority of their games indoors, not only because they're at home, because that's just how the league is right now. 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 108.9 rating. This year, outdoors, which last I checked, Levi's is outdoors. 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and an 82 rating. So, look, there's a big difference. Jared Goff, home and road, there's a big difference. Jared Goff, inside, outside. And just to talk about what Dennis did, he's got even better talent than he had with the Rams. And remember, he had Cooper Kupp there at the end. But the 3 receivers that he has, the running backs that he has, maybe one of the best offensive lines in the league. So he's got a lot of stuff that he does well. But the one thing I really like, and I'll defer to you on Dennis on this one, is Jordan Love can move. A lot of these quarterbacks who can move give the 49ers problems. Jalen Hurts and these kind of guys, Dak Prescott, they'll pick up a third down with their legs. That's not Jared Goff.
Nope.
They know where he's going to be in the pocket. He's going to be directly in the middle. He may step up a little bit. He can hit guys. But like you said, he's not a guy that they're going to have to worry about running out of the pocket. Will he late on a drive on a 3rd and 5, try to pick up 5? Yeah, all quarterbacks do that. But he's not going to beat you with his legs. And so they know that he's going to be in the center there. Get there and get him. I think that gives the Niners a big advantage.
That's got to be the game plan. I mean, if you shut down this run as play action, get after him. 3rd down, you got to get after this guy. I mean, if he's able to sit in the pocket, like I said, he's got a strong arm. He'll pick you apart. He'll kill the secondary. But if you put some pressure on him, he'll throw you a pick.
He was sacked twice last season. Has not thrown last week. Has not thrown an interception yet this postseason. Against the Buccaneers, he went 30 of 43, 287, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked twice. Overall in the playoffs, 52 of 70, 564, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Overall sacked 5 times in the regular season. Completed 67, just shy of 67.5% of his passes for 45, 75, 30 touchdowns, 12 picks. He's not throwing a lot of interceptions in general this year. He's been accurate, and they have a great running game. He's only run for 2 touchdowns. He was sacked 30 times, to your point, Dennis. He's not going to evade a lot of pressure.
No, yeah. And you got to get after him. Like John said, you know where he's going to be. He's going to be in the pocket. It's going to be so important for Hargrave and Armstead to collapse that pocket inside because he'll climb a little bit, but he ain't going to do much. He's going to be there. You know where he's going to be at. And if he doesn't have that run game and he can't utilize that play action, there should be 4 or 5 sacks in this game.
Well, and here's the thing, too. We often talk about Bosa and where it's going to come from. The inside, Frank Ragnow has 3 major injuries. And, look, he's a hell of a player. He's second-team All-Pro, but he's banged up a little bit. Graham Glasgow's a guy they can take advantage of on the right side, and they have a backup left guard. So, to me, this is all about Hargrave played a hell of a game last year in the NFC Championship game. Now he's on the right team. He's got to be able to take advantage of that backup guard inside Eric Armstead. And Kyle said he played a hell of a game. We'll step it up one more notch now that you've been out for a while. You're back. You're in rhythm. I expect Eric Armstead to have a great game. They can get push in the middle. And, again, Dennis knows better than I do. That's where it comes from. If Jared Goff can't move up in the pocket, he's a pocket quarterback. He wants to move up in the pocket. He doesn't really want to move outside too much. One thing to keep an eye on, when Jared Goff had his most success against the 49ers, the Rams got him outside of the pocket so they didn't have to deal with middle pressure. I would not be surprised if the Lions had a bit of that in their game plan today to get him outside of the pocket. Now, they're not going to go to Nick's side, but they might have a right-handed quarterback go out to the left side to avoid some of that middle pressure.
Goff can do that, too. He's actually not bad at that. And turning his hips and coming this way.
He tore the 49ers up a few years ago doing that, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was in their game plan because although he's not a runner, he can move that way because I think the middle of the 49ers defense can really take advantage of Glasgow's banged up. Glasgow's not great, and they've got a backup left guard. So I expect the 49ers in the middle to dominate this offensive line.
To Brock Purdy, just briefly here before we get into some other stuff for this game, the NFC Championship at 3:30 kickoff coming your way. We're live from Levi Stadium. Brock Purdy obviously didn't have a great game against the Packers. For the game, he finishes 23 of 39, 252, 1 touchdown, no picks. Could have been 2 interceptions, but prior to that final drive, he was 16 of 31 for just over 200 yards passing on the final drive. 7 of 8, 47 yards. He gets 2 carries for 11. Both go for first downs. That's what you're looking to pick up on, is the way he ended the game. It's almost like you don't leave the gym until you watch the ball go through the net. At least he ends it on them getting a scoring drive. They get to intercept the ball and take a knee.
Yeah, and we've talked about it. I think a lot of it was the timing was off last week, the weather, not to make excuses for him. I mean, it's up to you to make the better decision, but I expect him to be more efficient today because of the dry track.
I think it's really simple. Brock in wins as 49ers quarterback, 41 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a 124.5 rating. In losses, 3 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a 62.3. There is no middle ground with Brock Purdy. When he's hot, he's hot. The 49ers roll. When he's not, they struggle. But when he has struggled mostly, Cleveland this year on the road, rain. Minnesota on the road. You know, the Ravens are the Ravens. Look, they're a great defensive team, and they beat the 49ers receivers to spots. I don't know that the Lions can do that. They are ultra-aggressive defensively. Now, that may lead to an interception. Who knows? But it also can lead to big plays, and we know what the 49ers can do. Yak, big plays. The Lions miss the second most tackles in the league. Put this in perspective. They've missed 124 tackles. The 49ers have missed 64. So we've complained sometimes the 49ers have missed tackles.
That's double.
They've doubled the amount.
I just crunched the numbers
here.
That's nice.
Yeah.
We're talking about Debo not even being on the injury report. Breaking tackles, big plays. That's what the Lions give up because they're ultra aggressive. Linebackers come up, safeties come up, and they don't tackle well in the corner. So the 49ers, little plays can turn into big plays, and that's what the 49ers feast on.
We are live from Levi Stadium. The AFC Championship is already underway. The NFC title game is coming your way at 3:30. Still going to catch up with our guy Matt Mayoko from NBC Sports Bay Area. Our 49ers insider will catch up with the broadcast team as well as we get you ready. Niners and the Lions, a 3:30 kick coming your way. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, and John Lund. When we come on back, you've got Dan Campbell, one of the most aggressive coaches in the NFL. Does Kyle Shanahan have to match his aggressiveness today for the 49ers to put this one away early? We'll talk about that next. Live from Levi Stadium, it's the NFC title game, and it's only here on The Sports Leader.
Yeah, for me, it's, you're real with yourself. You understand where you're at as a quarterback, how you played, and it doesn't matter if you play good or bad. Like, you can't, I don't think, take really any of that with you the next week. It's a new game, it's a new scheme, it's a new environment, everything about it is new. So it's almost like you got to clean the slate, learn from the mistakes, build off of, the good things that you've done, but it's going to be it's a new game. So that's the mental battle that I feel like all the NFL quarterbacks go through, and I think that's where the great ones really, separate themselves from the others. So, yeah, that's how I look at it.
Voice of 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy there, looking at turning the page from the start that he had in last week's game, and we were just talking about this off the air as the Kansas City Chiefs march down after the opening drive 3-and-out from the Ravens. Mahomes just hits Travis Kelce for his 19th career postseason receiving touchdown. Chiefs have a 7-0 lead in the first quarter of the AFC Championship out in Baltimore. I was just telling you guys, Patrick Mahomes, 9-1-1 in his career as an underdog, and got a win last week in Buffalo as an underdog, his second road playoff game, looking to take him back to the Super Bowl. Let's get you the health report, sponsored by Danville Pain and Wellness, bringing your nerve pain to an end. We just talked a little bit about the offensive line for the Lions. I think the number one thing we need to note, and this was news yesterday, on Friday, Debo Samuel not on the injury report at all. So we talked at the top of the show about the gamesmanship behind that, about maybe you're saying there's absolutely nothing wrong so that they aren't coming after him. That said, I don't think this is a decoy situation. I think Debo was out of the game due to pain tolerance. He practiced this week limited, then he practiced at the end. He's on the health report, then he's 50-50, then he's off completely. That's got to be all positive things for the 49ers.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the impact that he has on, and we've already talked about it, to this offense is huge. But yeah, I mean, you got to get him out there. You have to let Detroit know that he's in the game. He's in the game. He's going to play. He's going to be the old Debo. So, he's important. I think he's important to the win. He's important to this, this offense. He sets the tone, just the way he runs the football, the way he can run in the middle in those yak yards. So, yeah, get him out there, get him the ball soon, and give it to him often.
Plus, this is the perfect team for him to play against. They're overly aggressive. They miss tackles. I can see a Debo quick screen, quick hitter going for a long one because, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was talking a bunch of trash. They've got some really good safeties. They're going to be trying to hit on that shoulder. That's fine. These are the kind of situations that Debo Samuel, I think, thrives in. If you think about, go back to the Super Bowl in 2019, the whole first half was all about Debo, this rookie, and Kansas City couldn't contain him. And then, the couple of years after 2021, they had the injuries in the backfield, Mitchell and all these guys, and Debo had to run the ball a ton. There was a lot in the game plan for Debo last week because you don't hold anything back once the playoffs hit. Debo hasn't run the ball as much this year, but he was big into the game plan. So we'll find out really early how healthy he is. Again, he's not on the health report. Maybe that's gamesmanship, or maybe that's 100% the truth. The Lions are going to be guessing. But the one thing is they've got to prepare for him as if he's 100% and he's going to be in the game plan big time. And if he is, it's really difficult because then that lines up the situation where McCaffrey's going one way, Debo's going the other. You have to honor that. All of a sudden, it's play action. Brandon Ayuk's going one-on-one against the corners. George Kittle is in the middle against aggressive linebackers on a play action. There's so many things that Debo opens up, not even when he doesn't even get the ball, and then all of a sudden he can set this physical tone, which that's how he got hurt. He was trying to set a physical tone against Green Bay early, and I know how aggressive Detroit is going to be early in this game. It would not surprise me. Quick hitters against blitzes. You saw Brian Branch against Tampa Bay coming off corners. The 49ers will be prepared for that, and a lot of that is going to be just look at me, and Brock Purdy's going to see that guy off the corner, look at a Debo Samuel. He makes a quick catch, maybe even behind the line of scrimmage. He can bust out for, a huge play, light up this stadium, change momentum. Those are the type of plays that Debo Samuel can make, and I expect them to make today against the Lions.
Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown, and John Lund with you here live from Levi's Stadium, ahead of the NFC Championship. Again, Chiefs up 7-0 right now on the Ravens in the first quarter out in Baltimore in the AFC title game. I asked you before the break, John, do you think the Niners are going to have to be as aggressive, or will Kyle have to match some of the aggressiveness of Dan Campbell? We just saw what happened in the Kansas City Chiefs game. They went for it on a fourth and short in, where were they, at the 40?
Yeah, they were in Baltimore territory on the 40 with 4th and 2, and Mahomes hit Kelce, and then a couple plays later, as we saw, just a great throw by Mahomes to take the lead. But, that's going to be one of the main storylines today is that the Lions, as far as fourth downs, 21 for 40, second most makes and attempts in the NFL. Only Carolina had more because Carolina stunk. They had 48, so they had to keep going on fourth down. But they are the most aggressive team. There's this index. They are the most aggressive team in the league. 3 for 6 on 2-point conversions. The Niners didn't even try one. The Niners were 7 of 13 on fourth down. Lowest makes, lowest amount of attempts. The way that the linebacker is going to play, the way that they defend, they're in the middle as far as blitz rate is concerned. The Niners are near the bottom, but in every metric, you could see a fake punt from the Lions would not surprise me to try to change momentum. It's just what they do. So it comes down to, the more questions that Kyle was asked this week about the difference in aggressiveness, the more he dug his heels in the way that he does things. And look, people can scream and yell and do all they want. That's what Kyle Shanahan does. And he's going to be conservative. It's going to be a difference in two styles. Look, last week it worked. Right before the half, Jake Moody missing the 48-yard, having it blocked. It was a low kick, and I don't know that it would have made it anyway. But he did make a 52-yarder when Kyle gave him the opportunity in the rain. So, look, Kyle's not going to change. It's just going to be the way it's going to be, and neither is Dan Campbell. They're going to try a fake punt today. There's no doubt in my mind, or if that opportunity presents itself. But the one thing is speaking of special teams, remember, they gave up the Nixon play. They got a field goal block. They have got to shore things up across the board, and we haven't even talked about special teams. But if Detroit's going to try a fake, and we saw this in the Buffalo-Kansas City game last week, you got to stop it. That changes momentum both ways. Remember, when you're super aggressive, that's fine, but it better work because it can blow up in your face and change momentum really quickly. It
can flip the score. It can be a 2-score swing that fast, right?
Yeah, and just watching the Kansas City-Baltimore game, 4th and 1, I think it's Baltimore, they're their own 35, and they went for it. Lamar Jackson goes right up the middle.
Picked it up.
30 yards or something like
That's
that.
That's what teams do. I mean, the analytics do tell you to do that. And, Kyle's really cool in modern day and dresses a certain way. But, man, he's like his dad. I mean, it's just like his dad's coaching, man. He's old school. And he feels like, I'm going to play defense. I got a good defense. I'm going to do, I'm going to kick field goals rather than go for it on 4th down. I mean, that's just the way it is. So one of the main storylines will be this. And look, everybody loves aggressiveness, right? The crowd always wants to go on 4th and 1 until you get it. The crowd always wants a fake punt unless they don't get it. There's a massive flip. And again, aggressiveness is not just these plays that are tangible. It's the way the Lions play. The Lions are very aggressive defensively. First step for those linebackers is towards the line of scrimmage. Kyle Shanahan can use, especially early, this team is jacked up. I expect some sort of misdirection, these type of things, especially early in the game before Detroit gets settled. There has to be something said for the 49ers having experience. Jared Goff has it. He went to a Super Bowl. The majority of this team is running off adrenaline. And if you give them early reason to be optimistic about this game, they'll run on adrenaline as long as they can. The 49ers just need to be calm and cool. They've been to 4 or 5 out of the last 5. They've been to 3 in a row.
Purdy started one, man. He's been, at least I know he got hurt, but at least he started one. He's been out there for it.
And they've been thinking about it for a year. I mean, we haven't talked about that yet, but that game in Philly where everybody said, wait till we get another chance. Well, it's here. Today is that day.
Yeah, and a lot of guys, I forget, a lot of these guys on this team, this is what they've done. Like a Fred Warner, Brandon Ayuk, Debo. This is what they've been doing, right? They've been in NFC championship games. So they know exactly what to expect when they get out there and how the game is going to go. And it's got to be aggressive and it's got to be super physical. And this Detroit team, I've watched them play, and I watched this head coach on the sidelines. They are a physical football team, and they have a lot of dog in them.
Are we going to see, it's a foolish question, I think, to ask, are we going to see more of McCaffrey? Does he have to be big? I thought 17 carries was light last week, and I would anticipate more McCaffrey. You're talking a lot of Debo. I think it's a big Debo. I think it's a game where a lot of guys could go off, and we started to see that at the end of the season. And I know that this defense has been good against the run. They've not allowed 100, both opponents in the postseason against the Lions, but the Bucs and the Rams under 100 yards rushing, surrendered 0 rushing touchdowns in total. They gave up over 400 rushing yards in the first 2 playoff games, but they've held all opponents. They kept the run for both opponents under and surrendered 0 touchdown runs throughout the first 2 playoff games. Is my point here. The run D for them has been fantastic this year. McCaffrey hasn't been bottled up really by anybody.
Right.
He's had, 2 games this year under 70 yards?
See, I think the deception for the Lions is, again, they're very aggressive and they'll come up, but this is where the 49ers absolutely positively have to change this trend. Tampa Bay only had 15 carries. They averaged 6 yards a carry. They don't have a good run offense. Rashad White went 9 for 55. That's over 6 a carry. They just didn't stay with the run game. Same with the Rams in a 24-23 game. Kyron Williams, who is great, 13 for 61. That's 5 yards a carry.
And they stopped going there.
But they ran it 17 times. So you're doing them a favor. I mean, to say, hey, look, they're 87-7 at 4-1 a carry. That's a good run defense. It's the second fewest yards in the league. But the 49ers, it's their MO, 30-plus. We know what Kyle's number is winning a game. They can't abandon the run. Now, if you get behind, that's a different story. But if you're talking, again, the Rams and the Lions was a 24-23 game. You've got to stay with the run. I understand one of the criticisms that you could have with Kyle Shanahan last week is against Green Bay, we got to see a ton of Christian McCaffrey. We got to see Debo. Hey, we got to see Mitchell today. Whatever the case may be, they have got to be able to run the football and tire out this defense and then work off the play action. They 15 carries for Tampa, 17 carries for the Rams. That can't be the case.
So, 17 for McCaffrey last week. I think you got to see more today. They've allowed 5 passing touchdowns. I think McCaffrey in the passing game is something what you're talking about. Some misdirection, some flare out. I anticipate what you're saying is at some point when they try to bring those linebackers early up the middle hard, you're going to see somebody flare out and there's going to be McCaffrey standing by himself or Juszczyk streaking
and that was
up
a
the
big thing the
sideline.
Packers did last week. He caught 7 balls, but there wasn't anything significant. They did a great job in the outlet, the dump off type stuff. To keep Christian McCaffrey in check.
He had to get between the tackles, if he wanted to break free. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. It's going to be an aggressive game from the Lions. It's going to be a heavy run game we expect from the Lions. They gave up 400 plus, in total. They gave up 400 plus yards in both playoff games, but held their opponents' run numbers under 100 in each. But again, they were running at a good clip. The yards per attempt for both the Rams and the Buccaneers pretty good. They just didn't stick with it. Let's catch up with our guy, Matt Mayoko, 49ers insider from NBC Sports Bay Area. He is here on hand and has been with the team all week covering the health of Debo Samuel. We'll find out if there's any late scratches or anything else we need to know about the roster ahead of the NFC Championship. Niners and the Lions from Levi Stadium. Kickoff at 3:30. Matt Mayoko next, only here on the Sports Leader.
they're different almost every week. So you kind of got to see that in the game and how they play. They'll switch stuff up. If they get beat on something, it's going to be something different next time. So there's lots of the consistency is they're going to attack and be aggressive, but it's not in terms of just coverages, fronts, and all that stuff. They're running around trying to create confusion, trying to create negative plays. That's how they get their turnovers. That's how they don't mind giving you a lot of stuff. And all of a sudden they create a negative play on second down, and you're in 3rd and 15. And really, I feel that's their goal to the game.
That is Kyle Shanahan leading us into the NFC Championship game, talking about the aggressiveness of the Lions. Certainly is going to be a storyline to watch, not only for 4th downs, but also just the way overall that the Lions do gamble. In fact, in Detroit, in the Motor City, they call him not Dan Campbell, Dan Gamble. Dan Gamble.
How about that?
Today. So,
I like the backfield nickname, too, Rhythm and Bruise.
Yes. So let's get into all of it. By the way, good omen today, January 28, 1990. Today is January 28th. That's when the 49ers blew out the Broncos, of course.
It was a good day.
It was over by halftime. It was over earlier than that, actually. Let's get into all of it, the latest on injuries and so forth, game plans. It is a beautiful day at Levi's Stadium, expecting sun, no rain, no precipitation, which is great news for the 49ers, taking on the Lions in the NFC Championship game. And it's our good friend Matt Mayoko. Make sure you're reading all his stuff and follow him on Threads and the 49ers Talk podcast. He joins us courtesy of the Umi Guest Line. What's happening?
Gentlemen,
how are
the
you?
Heck are you?
I'm feeling great. I love this.
You get a good night's sleep?
Go.
No. You're rested? You ready?
Not at all.
I never get rested.
Tossing and turning too.
Yeah.
You know what? That's funny because I really don't. I'm not playing, but it's fun. Like the game, like the night before. It's fun, isn't it?
Oh man,
the buildup is so big. Like for every week, it's like that. We talk about a game all week long, and it just becomes sort of routine, I think. And then after, even the anticipation for last week's game and then how it played out, where really until that final touchdown, I don't know that I ever thought they were going to win that game. And at some point, you start to have that reality sink in, like, oh my gosh, this thing it's gonna end right now. And I think part of my angst for today, I was telling these guys, Matt, is it's maybe the easiest NFC Championship of the last 3 for me to be in the moment for this one, because we've seen them lose 2 in a row. Mm-hmm. We saw them lose the Super Bowl a few years back. Plus, the pending opponent. It's no cupcake, you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to think only about the Lions, I think, today.
Yeah, it's just amazing, that 2 years ago they lose. There are reasons why they lost. And then it's just the day after, it's just like, wow, this team has to, they're 0-0. And they're going through the offseason program, everything to get back. And they did it. They got back last year. And then basically the game blew up in the first quarter. They had 0 chance of winning that game, even though I think they were tied at one point, 7-7. They had no chance of winning that game once Brock Purdy was injured. And then, of course, later when Josh Johnson was injured. So then it becomes the next day, you're 0-0 again. And everything points toward getting back. And not only getting back, but instead of losing those games early in the season, an emphasis was placed on starting fast. Not that, an emphasis wasn't placed on it the years before, but it just became like that's the thing. That's what they're kind of striving for, to get off to a good start. And they did get off to a good start. And then here we are. They're back in this situation. They've been pointing toward this for a full year to make sure that if they got back in that spot, that the game was at home. And here they are. And like you said, Copes, when Aaron Jones tore off that run in the fourth quarter, I thought, wow, this is not good from the sense of what is going to be the backlash, what's going to be just the all the chatter, right. The fallout from that game. What's going to happen? People are going to be like, fire everybody, tear it up, all that stuff. And now they're one game away, and it comes down to just how these teams execute. And it won't be a wet football. It won't be guys slipping and sliding, but it could be, a couple out of the ordinary plays that end up turning this game one way or another.
Yeah, and you talk about, the things that win football games and execution. I look at last week's game, and in my thought, I just think this defensive line has to play a whole lot better than they did, especially against the run last week. Played well, in the red zone, but there were some big gash runs. Talk about this defensive line and what they need to do against this really good Detroit offensive line.
Yeah, and I can't figure that one out, Dennis, because you look at this 49ers front seven, and it's good. There's no reason that a defensive line with Chase Young, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, and with linebackers such as Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, there is no reason that should be a team that gives up big plays in the running game, or even just the 4, 5, 6 yards a pop. There's no reason why that should happen. This team is way too talented for that. But yes, yet they haven't been super efficient against the run, and it showed up last week. And they did give up, the long run that I alluded to. But I think, overall, the numbers weren't bad, but they can't have that letdown. They have to really button this thing up to keep the Lions in, third and long, second and long, third and long, and then they can get after Jared Goff and maybe force him into some mistakes. But if Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery are ripping off 5 and 6 yards a pop, then that just totally opens things up for Ben Johnson to just dial it up and, have Jared Goff do play action and get the ball out of his hands and avoid the pass rush. So that is definitely the key to this game from a 49ers defensive standpoint.
Matt Mayoka is joining us, getting ready for the NFC Championship game, the 49ers and the Lions down here at Levi's Stadium. Debo Samuel, not only is he going to play, he's not even on injury designation. So is some of that gamesmanship, or is Debo Samuel just 100% good to go?
Well, yeah, he's good to go. He's 100%. Well, I don't know if he's 100%, but not so much that there's even a question whether he's going to play. Remember in the old days of the injury report, he'd be listed as probable. But they've done away with the probable because that was basically he's going to play. So now it's if he's going to play, then he's going to play, and there's no injury designation for him. But I think things were trending very well for him on Thursday. I saw him get out there and run around, and even on Wednesday, he looked to be in very good spirits. Thursday, I saw him go up and catch a pass over his head, and I think that was more than anything. It's kind of a pain tolerance situation with the shoulder, but also range of motion. And I think he has the range of motion. Now, is he going to be back there returning kickoffs? I don't know. I kind of doubt it unless they need something like to spark him in the second half or something along those lines. But, how effective can he be? Will he be? That's another question. Certainly the 49ers want the Lions to play the 49ers straight up, and that could open the door for a big day for Brandon Ayuk. So I think, Debo said he's not protecting anything. He's out there. It's going to be, in Debo Samuel's mind, he's going to be fully ready, no limitations. And the thing about this Lions defensive backfield, not the greatest tacklers, and their corners are very susceptible. So, Debo Samuel might see this as a game where he can really have an impact. He's not 100%. I'm sure there will be some pain management stuff that they'll be doing for him. But there's an opportunity for the 49ers passing game to really thrive if they can figure out the blitzes, see where they're coming from. Brock Purdy sees it clearly. He's decisive, gets the ball out quickly. And the 49ers are kind of built to beat the blitz, getting the ball out to Debo, to Ayuk, to Kittle, to McCaffrey, and let those guys work their wonders when a team's bringing 5 defenders at the quarterback. It opens the door for some big plays, yards after the catch for the 49ers.
Should we, as we're talking to Matt Mayoko here, 49ers and the Lions coming your way 3:30 for the NFC Championship. We know how aggressive Dan Campbell is. Should we anticipate some fake punts, some wacky stuff today, some lots of going for it on fourth down, maybe in questionable spots? We were talking about Dan Gamble just a minute ago. Your thoughts on him and whether or not Kyle will have to match some of that at all today?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean as far as, to me, that always kind of sends a signal that if you're doing kind of gimmicky stuff, it kind of sends a signal that, hey, we don't think we're good enough to win this game if we go toe-to-toe. So we're going to have to steal some possessions. We're going to have to kind of make some stuff happen. I think the 49ers will play this one. I don't know, but I was going to use the word conservatively, but they're just going to play it straight up. I don't see them doing anything out of the ordinary. The Lions, they'll probably, if it's a 4th and 2 from the 36, I'm sure they'll go for it. I think they'll be strategic in when they go for it on fourth down. And so the kind of the thin line that he's walking is you don't want to do anything crazy out of the ordinary that sends the signal to your team that we have to do something crazy or out of the ordinary to be in this game. But you also want to be able to show the aggressiveness. And, he'll paint it as, I got confidence in my guys. Let's go for it. So there could be some opportunities there, but I think it's all situational. It's where they are on the field and kind of the plus minus of, where, what's the downside, what's the upside, will a punt benefit them more than just rolling the dice and going for it.
Matt Mayoko joining us, NFC Championship game, getting ready for the Lions and the 49ers down here at beautiful Levi Stadium. The weather. I don't want to make excuses. I think excuses, explanations, things like that. I mean, Brock Purdy just didn't play well. And I think when you're throwing to a spot and anticipating, which Brock does so well, when you're in the rain, a lot of times guys just aren't where they're supposed to be. That's just the way it is. I mean, you saw that with Jawan Jennings. There was a couple of plays there. How much do you think good weather helps Brock Purdy?
Well, based on what we've seen, it helps him out quite a bit. Because I saw the same thing that everybody else saw. I saw a guy that didn't have a whole lot of confidence in where the ball was going. And I think what you just mentioned is a big point, is that not only did he maybe not have a lot of confidence in where the ball was going, he didn't have a lot of confidence if his guys would be there. I mean, we saw some plays where, the Kittle got walled off a little bit. He threw it to a spot, and Kittle wasn't there. And it was really no fault of Kittle's, no fault of Purdy's, but it looks horrible because, the ball's skipping along the wet grass with nobody around. So I just felt like his decisiveness, his confidence in just standing back there and letting it rip just wasn't the same because, he comes out with the glove on, then there's no glove on. I mean, anytime that a quarterback is messing with something so important as how he grips a football, it's probably not going to end well. But, credit to Brock Purdy. When they needed something, when they needed some plays, he made them, and he was, 6 for 6 on that final drive, and the only incompletion was the pass that he put right on George Kittle's chest that he dropped. So those were some big time throws, and let's oh boy, how can he not be good? He has so many terrific weapons, the best in the game. He was making plays to Chris Conley and to Jawan Jennings.
Yeah.
And hey, nothing against those guys. Those guys are good football players, good role players and all that. But I don't think that's the guys that people are talking about when they're trying to discredit Brock Purdy. But that's the fact. I mean, he was making plays to everybody. It didn't matter if it was, the all-pro guys and the Pro Bowl guys. It was some of the role players that came up big when they needed it last week. So they're going to need that. I talked to George Kittle this last week, and he said that he felt like the momentum that they built in the final 6:18 of that game is something that can carry over, that they didn't have that momentum going into that game last week for a variety of reasons, but also the fact that, they did have the bye week, and they really had 2 bye weeks because very few guys, including the quarterback, played much at all in week 18. So, the idea, his mindset was instead of, kind of starting from scratch, the 49ers can use that momentum in which they ended the game last week and start off strong today. And I think they'll have to. They do need to kind of put their foot down and show the Lions that the 49ers mean business, because I kind of think the same thing as last week. I mean, the Lions, they should be here. These are the 2 best teams in the NFC. But the longer the Lions stay in this game and challenge the 49ers with all the 49ers history, including the past 2 seasons of not getting past this day, I think they become more and more tight, and it makes it more and more easy for the Lions to come in here and pull off the upset.
Could I ask you, just being around the team so much, because we have talked so long about that Philly game, and damn it, we just need another chance. We just need another chance. We just need another chance. That day is here. Just being around these guys, because look, if you're not motivated by this point, I don't know what to tell you, but so they're going to be motivated. Detroit's going to be motivated, but just having to go through this last year where they said so many times, we didn't get a chance in that game. Well, here it is. Today's the day.
And John, I don't know if that's a positive or a negative. I think it could be both, and it just depends on how this game shakes out. But, it is a team that comes in with no NFC Championship game experience, is that worse than a team that the last 2 times they've been here, it ended horribly for them? I don't know. And I think there is the element of, the Lions have, they're playing for the same thing. The winner goes to the Super Bowl. The loser, no matter who it is, goes home. So the stakes are the same, but there might be like this maybe kind of mental edge that the Lions have of, hey, we can just kind of let it all hang out. We can just play carefree. Maybe we're here a year before we expected to be. So I don't know if that has any impact on this game where the 49ers like, man, we built all season to get here. Does that put more pressure on them?
Well, that's
to feel
the
that
start.
way?
I really believe, just like you do, and we're talking aggressiveness. People forget the Lions have taken the ball 7 times this year on opening possession. So the last week I was making this big deal and looked like an idiot per normal and said, well, the backers are going to take the ball. The 49ers are going to
talk a lot about that. Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And then, but so they get it before the half. They have the 48-yard field goal blocked, and then they get a 3 and out. So I thought it was a big deal that, the Packers are going to take the ball. I think it's a big deal, too, because I think the Lions want the Niners to play from behind.
Yeah.
And I think win or lose the toss, I think the Lions are going to get the ball first.
Yeah.
And it's a real opportunity for the 49ers, like you said, to go 3 and out, to gain confidence. That's what happened in the AFC Championship game. Kansas City stopped Baltimore on the opening drive. They got a touchdown. They're up 14-7 right now, and they're playing with a heck of a lot of confidence. So
it works both ways,
with
John.
Yeah,
it
right.
works both ways.
Yep.
If the 49ers stop them, then it's like momentum swings to the 49ers. Last week was kind of a weird thing where the Packers moved the ball right down the field, but then, and this was a Packers team that was extraordinary in the red zone last week or the previous week against the Cowboys, 5 for 5 once they got to the 20-yard line as far as scoring touchdowns. But the fact that Charvarius Ward made that PBU in the end zone, that was kind of like almost like a hedge of the bets. Like the Packers were feeling good. Oh, we got on the board, but they weren't feeling great. And the 49ers were like feeling, good that, hey, we kept them out of the end zone, but they weren't feeling great because they gave up the points. So, I think, but also that the early part of that game did set the tone in a couple of different ways. It told the world and it told the Packers sideline they're going to be in this game the entire way, but also probably in the back of their mind they're like, oh my gosh, we should be up by so much more than we are right now.
Matt Mayoka, the voice you hear on the Yuma Guest Line live from Levi Stadium. Matt, we will see you upstairs in just a bit, man.
Thanks Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the day.
Yeah, all right, dude. It's going to be a fun one. Niners and the Lions, the NFC Championship coming your way at 3:30. We will have it all for you right here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, The Sports Leader. We're streaming twitch.tv/The Sports Leader. We'll be back on with you for the postgame no matter what. Win or lose, we will be here. And especially if they win, there will be a whole trophy ceremony. There'll be all that good stuff, and we'll be with you late, getting your reaction and your calls either way after the game. Let's get a fantasy player to watch, sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. It's so funny. I was looking at some of these Prize Picks for today, and I was looking at the more or less than the stat totals that they give you. I was looking at Jared Goff, more than 0.5 interceptions. I like that. I also like more than 1.5 interceptions.
Ooh, being aggressive.
Which gets you a little bit more there on the on that play if you're looking for a prop there, if you're looking for something in the game today. But I think that's where I'm going. And also, we talked earlier about the big passing numbers against this defense for the Lions, where they've been pretty good against the run. I know that's a little bit deceiving. Pass numbers have been big. Brandon Ayuk, I think, is going to have a big day. You said Debo Samuel's a heavy load guy. I think we're looking at George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk on that two pass catchers.
Definitely. And George Kittle's getting, last week, he became the focus after Debo went down. So, middle of the football field, George Kittle.
There we go. By the way, just to get you an update on the AFC Championship, they just went 16 plays, 75 yards on a drive that lasted like 9 minutes. Did Patrick Mahomes? Did you see that play he made? He made another insane play where he ran around in the pocket, stepped up in the pocket. He had like 15 seconds, it seemed like, on the play. Then as he's hit, he throws it to Kelsey. It goes like behind his head, and Kelsey catches it off his helmet, falling to the ground.
They're playing with a lot of momentum right now.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, their offense was sort of, I won't say mediocre, but it was sort of hemming and hawing a little bit through the middle parts of the season. And now the defense is playing damn good D, it looks like, against Lamar Jackson, at least early on, and the offense is humming. More to come here from Levi Stadium. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lunn. We'll get you the game plan when we come on back, and then we'll let you hear from 49ers General Manager John Lynch before we go up to the broadcast booth and talk to Tim Ryan ahead of this one. Niners and the Lions, it's the NFC Championship, and it's right here on the Sports Leader.
I think a lot of challenges. I think it starts up front with their offensive line. I think they have one of the best offensive line groups in the league. They have big guys who are athletic, who play with the right mindset, along with the rest of their team. But then also you add the two-headed monster at the running back that they have with Montgomery and Gibbs. I think it's a 1-2 punch. You got your physical and you got your speed there with quickness. And that's where the challenges present, because they can run downhill, they can hit you on the outside. So we have to obviously cover all areas.
That was the voice of Fred Warner, 49ers linebacker, talking about how they're going to cover the Lions' run game today. The rhythm and bruise backfield of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, who combined for a lot of yards this year, both of them, and also tons and tons of touchdowns. I'll get you those numbers right now. David Montgomery had over 1,000 scrimmage yards, 13 total touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs, 1,261 scrimmage yards and 11 total touchdowns. So 24 TDs between them. You mix in Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. They've got 10 apiece. So they've got 4 guys with over 10 touchdowns scored this year. Let's talk about the game plan. Time for Building the Game Plan, sponsored by Golden State. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit us today at goldenstatelumber.com and by
It Was For Me.
River Islands. Come home to River Islands in Lathrop and discover the San Joaquin River lifestyle with its lakes, parks, and schools. Start your tour today at riverislands.com. We've talked all day basically about the game plan and what we're going to see from the Lions. There is something sort of cool and novel about this being the first time we've seen this team at this capacity and at this level. Like, we've seen the Rams so many times. We've seen the Eagles start to become a factor. And we saw them last year in the NFC title game and then again this year. Obviously, the Chiefs have been a force in the AFC for many years. This is a new team that's thrown themselves in the mix here, and we might see a few of these in the NFC over the next couple of years just based on how wide open it might be relative to that of the AFC. But this game is going to be all about we joke frequently about the trenches. The game's always won and lost in the trenches.
And it's no joke, Copes. It's no joke.
It's not. It's a joke that we say it so frequently. Like,
see how serious he is?
Make it one. We got to make them one-dimensional.
You don't say it is.
Yeah. That's serious. I mean, that's a serious deal. I mean, especially today. I mean, you just said it right there.
Because it has to happen game after game after game.
It has to happen.
Every
it has to happen.
Right.
And we saw last week, if you let a team, get the ability to kind of start their pass action game, I mean, it's a done deal. It makes it for a long day. So it's super important. The trenches are important on both sides of the ball. And we haven't talked about McKivitz against Hutchinson. I mean, that's going to be a big matchup this week, too. So it's won and lost in the trenches. Defensive linemen win championships. I'm going to take even the defense, just defensive linemen win it.
But not offensive linemen?
No, not so much.
No, you're 100% right. You're not going to be able to run it.
But they don't lose championships? What's up?
Yeah, they won't lose them. Then that's the offensive line.
Scoring
That's the way he's
touchdowns
gonna do
really
it.
either, do they?
By the way, Hutchinson's a guy that he wears Bosa's 97 for the Lions. Not only will he go up against on that side against McKivitz, they move him a lot in the middle. He's 6'6". And so what they do is, especially with Brock being limited as far as his vision is concerned a little bit, they'll move him to the middle and kind of be like an Armstead where he'll push the pocket, but he'll also get that arm up there so that he can't see as well. They move him all around. Bosa's going to move over to that other side, I think, opposite Decker a lot today, which will put Chase Young more against Sewell. But Hutchinson, they move him all along the line, but they move him to the middle a lot more than what the 49ers would do with a Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa might do some games and stuff and end up in the middle, but they'll rush him from the middle so that he can get his big hand up at 6'6".
We have got. Tim was asking me about a scheduling thing here. I think we're gonna get to a interview from John Lynch, 49ers general manager. He joined the morning show. He does it each and every week of the football season. We'll get you that conversation with John Lynch coming up next. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, and John Lum with you. By the way, the updated score on the AFC Championship: Chiefs have the ball right now, 14-7. They forced a fumble. Charles Omenihu swung him around the outside, and he forced a fumble. Lamar Jackson, a sack and a fumble by the former 49er. Still in the first half, they're 14-7 Chiefs. 4th and 1, and here we go again. Chiefs are going to go for it. We'll get you the update on what happens in this one, and we'll let you hear from 49ers GM John Lynch next. It's the NFC title game, and it's right here on the Sports Leader.
you have to be able to handle the ebbs and flows of a game in a season and playoffs. And that's what has been built for 3 years now. And so that's what gives me faith. Look, there's going to be things that are going to happen in this game that it's going to look like it's out of control. And it's not going to go well for us. And as long as we just play the next play, it'll turn. And that's what we've done all year. And that's the most important thing to keep in mind. But you got to be made a certain way, and the team has to be made a certain way to be able to handle that. Otherwise, you just crumble. So that's what gives me faith. We have a team that's built that way.
That was the voice of Lions head coach Dan Campbell talking about the adversity that they've faced this year and will probably face today. The Lions against the 49ers, the number 1 seed in the NFC, but he remains confident. We'll get more on Dan Campbell and more on this game in just a few minutes. But Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, and John Lunn here with you live from Levi Stadium. The NFC title game is coming up at 3:30. We will have a conversation with our guy, Tim Ryan. We'll be on the call with Greg Popple. We'll do that a little bit later. Still to come, the 49er Player Spotlight, the Steve Young Show, and John Dickinson, super reporter, boots on the ground here at Levi Stadium. He'll stop by the booth here with us as well. 49ers general manager and Hall of Famer John Lynch joins Murph and Marcus every week of the football season, and he did so this week ahead of this NFC Championship. And the guys asked John how he felt after that tight win last week over the Green Bay Packers.
Super confident. No, it was. I was feeling like everyone else. I mean, I heard it. I think my emotion was. It's really interesting because I'm. I don't know. I think. The way I was raised, the position I played, my experience in having played. I'm intense, but I'm usually. I'm probably an optimist. I'm always very much a believer in our team and our ability to come back from any situation. It was tested in that game, and a combination of things. You know, the number one, a really good team we were playing, who was playing at their best. You talk about a team who had peaked. The Packers were really peaking, playing well, playing confident. I had been on teams like that early in my years in Tampa when we became a playoff team. There is a freedom that comes with, hey, we're not even supposed to be here. Let's let it rip, and if not, we'll be back next year. You know, so I think a combination of all those things, a really quality opponent, and then, you know, it's the age-old deal with the bye week. How do you come out sharp? I think we did everything to prepare to come out sharp. We just weren't quite on it, and we're playing a good team, and it led to a very tense and like a lot of people said, it felt like that game put about 10 years on you. So it was very stressful, but our guys came through, and we talk a lot. Something Kyle will talk a lot, I'll talk a lot about is be at your best when your best is needed, and I felt like our players were. I'm proud of them for that. I think we'll be a lot better this week. I really do. My feeling is we'll come out from the jump playing much sharper, and we got to make that the case. It's not just going to happen, but that's my belief.
The old competitive greatness on the pyramid of success. Be at your best when your best is needed. I love it. So let's ask about the quarterback. So, John, we ask you about Brock Purdy every week, and you've given us your many, many, many thoughts. But I'd love your thoughts after that. Adversity, wet ball, incompletions, a near pick, and yet the final drive. Completion, scramble, touchdown. What did that teach you, tell you? What did you learn in that from Purdy, about Purdy, I should say?
I think not learned, maybe confirmed, that things that we've talked about all year. He's, whatever you call that, his mettle, his resolve, his resiliency, his ability, all of it. He's a stud. And, that last drive, absent a drop from Kittle where, Kittle's just trying to make a play, he's 7 of 7. And so you talk about who embodies more, be at your best when your best is needed. And I mean, for the most part this season, Brock's been really playing at a high level throughout. And, when we needed him most, he was there in tough conditions against a good defense, all of that. And that's why we have so much belief in Brock Purdy.
Yeah, and first of all, John, I just want to say congratulations on making another NFC Championship game. And I wanted to go a little big picture here because we're now seeing Brock Purdy at 24 years old go to his second straight NFC Championship game. In your opinion, what's been the biggest difference between the Brock Purdy that walked into Philadelphia last year versus the Brock Purdy you're going to see this weekend in Santa Clara?
just a little more experience. I think when you've had more experiences, good and bad, it kind of hardens you if you're made of the right stuff. And I think everybody should be pretty clear about my belief in that, our belief in that he is made of the right stuff. And so I think the more experiences you have, it just prepares you to be ready for any situation. And the competition gets tougher, as you approach this part of the season, and you're playing against the best. And Brock he kind of is prepared and ready for every situation. And I got to tell you, he threw me for a loop. I'd never seen him in a glove. When he went out there with a glove, what the hell is going on? But he figured that out too. And that's just kind of what he does. And, that's the coolest thing, to see the belief, because at this stage we understand there's going to be a lot of talk amongst pundits, the same people who were saying he's the MVP of the league prior to the Baltimore game now are, all that. But so that's all noise, and people have jobs to do. But I think the noise we concern ourselves with is the noise and really the reality within our team, and that's what matters most. And I mean, it's not lip service. These guys have his back because they know he has theirs, and they know he makes us better. And that's belief is the word, but there's a ton of that, and it's authentic, it's earned, and it's deserved.
Well, only 4 quarterbacks left. He's one of them. In college basketball, that's a big deal, the Final Four. I think it is in the NFL too. So, all right, John, to Sunday. Here come the Detroit Lions. And so I think my question is this. I think we all know, factually speaking, Kyle Shanahan is a master game planner and offensive play caller, and the proof is in the pudding. We see it every week. You're going up against a team that has very good coaches, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. But my question is about Dan Campbell and his emotion. That's a different style than Kyle. Kyle is detached and cool. Dan Campbell is emotional. He's visceral. He cries. He inspires. How real is that? Does that matter in the NFL? Can rah-rah work, and does that have your attention, the Dan Campbell emotion?
Yeah, I mean, he clearly, I think he's got some special qualities to him. Kyle respects the heck out of him. I respect the heck out of him. I remember walking through I was a contemporary. I mean, I'm older than Dan, but we did play against each other, and I didn't know him. You get to know a lot of guys in the league. I didn't know him. I got to know him in broadcasting a little. I remember I did a game when he was the interim coach down in Miami, and came out of a production meeting and go, wow, this guy's got some stuff to him. I mean, he really has some he inspired me in a production meeting. And, I remember last year at the Combine, just, you walk the halls there and going up to him. And, one of my daughters was off at school and a little homesick, so that I had never watched Hard Knocks, in its entirety, and that became our thing, watching Hard Knocks together. And, man, I was drinking the Kool-Aid on Dan Campbell. that sucker can inspire, but I think you go deep. Some people can just give speeches. The biggest compliment I can pay him, Brad Holmes, the same stuff he talks about you see on the film, on the silent tape, as we talk about. They've had a vision. They've had a plan. They've put it to work, and you see it. They're picking their players really well. But I think more importantly, it's not just the most talented players, it's players who fit who they want to be. And he does a great job of articulating who they want to be. And man, he and Brad Holmes done an unbelievable job with that place, their ownership. They've earned being here, and they're a tough opponent. I know you laughed who named the playoff team that we haven't had a lot of respect for, but this is a team we truly do, and they play a lot of similarities in the way we play to the way they play. Both it's I promise you this, it will be a physical football game because these are two physical teams, and two teams that can execute at a high level as well.
Yeah, and we've seen the Detroit Lions as a team rally around Dan Campbell, but also the city of Detroit has not only rallied around Dan Campbell, but also Jared Goff. And John, you know that you've seen Jared Goff a lot throughout his career, going back to his time with the LA Rams. So from your evaluation, are you seeing a different version of Jared Goff with the Lions than you saw when he was with the Rams?
Probably just more experiences. Goff's always been an incredibly talented guy. guy who, if you allow it, can sit back in a pocket and get really hot in a hurry. And so I think he just has continued. That's a great testament to him. If you can continue to improve in this league, a thing that's hard to do at that position, especially. I think he's got an offense that really fits his strengths extremely well. So, I can't say enough about Jared Goff and the way he's led that team. Much like our belief in Purdy, you can tell that it's authentic. They really believe in him. That you hear his offensive linemen talk about him. You hear his receivers talk about him. You hear defensive players talk about what he means to that team. So obviously critical to come up with a plan where you try to disrupt his rhythm, because when he gets in rhythm, he's a really tough dude to deal with.
Lynch, 49er GM, joining us on the Yuma guest side. He's got 15 minutes for us. It's really awesome to have him hop on KNBR right now and discuss this game. So we have a few minutes left, some big stuff to hit. So you're a safety. You're in the Hall of Fame. You're a Pro Bowl safety, or Hall of Fame safety, and you guys had safety questions going into this game. Jair Brown and Logan Ryan. We didn't even know who was going to play. You went with Logan Ryan. He did not have an awesome game, I don't think, by most people's estimations. He would probably say the same. Can you say who's going to be at safety this week? What goes into that decision and who you prefer?
Yeah, first of all, I think the Logan Ryan talk, Logan picked this up in a big way. I know there was one play on the Aaron Jones long run where, he was in the alley and didn't make a play, but Aaron Jones, really good back. I think Logan did some really good things for us. This guy's a champion. He has been. He's picked us up in a huge way coming in late. We had some injuries at the safety position, so we feel very fortunate to have a guy like Logan Ryan in the mix. Logan will play some. I think, Jair, as Kyle indicated last week, you got a rookie who was playing really well coming off a month, being on the shelf because of an injury. Is that fair to him? Is that fair to the team just to throw him out there? And so I think last week was a perfect scenario where, Jair got to get his legs underneath him, playing some special teams. And we'll see if he gets more involved in the defensive plan this week. But, we're really happy to have Logan involved, and you need a bunch back there at the secondary. So we'll see what happens.
Now, sticking on the defensive side of the ball, John, one of the takeaways was the success that the Green Bay Packers had running the ball last weekend. Now, the defensive line is an area that you guys have committed a lot of resources to. What was your breakdown of their performance last week, and where's your confidence in the D-line squaring off against Detroit this weekend?
Yeah, I think if you asked our defense, I think the one thing, you pride yourself on when you're a really high-level defense is that, hey, people are going to find some things that schematically are working, but what's our adjustment? How do we adjust? And in that game, the perimeter run, everyone saw it. They didn't expose because it wasn't, a pure schematic thing. They just had a good plan, and we didn't respond accordingly, and it continued to bite us. Thank God for our effort and our hustle and our core values, where Mooney Ward goes and chases down Aaron Jones, because if not for that, that drive at the end is to try to get back close in the game. Without that, Carlson doesn't have to miss that 41-yarder. So, that's what the playoffs and surviving are all about. Effort plays like that, and that's why you have to consistently teach and demand effort like that. So those are the type plays. We got to be better against the run. Detroit is a team who very much believes in the run. Our guys are not happy with the way that kind of went down. They're happy that we found a way to win. So prideful defenses, really good defenses, they usually fix things like that. And so, I know that's our challenge, and I know that Detroit will prod and try to find the same thing. So that's our challenge, and I expect that we'll be up to the task.
It's great stuff, man. It's so great. Thanks for hopping on. We sure do appreciate it. And by the way, are you okay being the villain? Right, we've been talking about it all week. 99% of America is crying and weeping over the Detroit story, and we're the villains, John. Are you okay being the villain?
I don't know about that, but I know that they're people are fired up, and rightly so. It's been a while for them. It's going to be, I don't know if it's announced yet, but maybe I'll give you a little breaking news. Honorary captain for us, Joe Montana. Honorary captain for them, Barry Sanders. I mean, that's pretty damn good. In my mind, 2 top 5 players in NFL history. They're going to be out there at the coin toss, and that's pretty good. And that's what this time of year is all about. And, man, we need the faithful rocking, because those folks from Detroit, they're pretty passionate about their team, but nobody's more faithful than the faithful. And we need that place rocking. We need it rolling. We need a home field advantage, and be kind to the folks from Detroit. Welcome them, all that. But this is our house, and we got to make it as such.
That is awesome. Don't forget, Joe beat him in '83. I just saw, by the way, I know you got to go, but there was an Instagram post ran this Brent Musburger Open. There was a live lion on the sideline. And you guys aren't allowing any live lions on Sunday.
Lions and Levi's, John.
I hope not. Damn.
And this is your old division foe, right? You used to go there every year, right?
Oh, yeah. I used to go there. Yeah, I made many Barry Sanders car commercials, believe me. The gift that keeps giving.
I always say, like when we talked to you, that you told us when you got into this, you got into it for the juice, the feel, the buzz of competition, playing for a championship. And you and Kyle are in it for the 3rd straight year. So congratulations again on that achievement. And I know you will be dialed in for Sunday. So thanks for the time, John. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thank you, fellas. All right.
Yeah, let's go. No live lions on the sideline for this game. Yeah, they were showing video of the Murph was saying he saw a video, guys, of the preview of the coming into the field for when Joe beat him the Lions, so back in '87 or whatever year it was. Anyway, beats the Lions, and Murph said there was a video of a live lion on the sidelines. Lynch was like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're not bringing in live lions on the sideline. John Dickinson is going to join us, our super reporter, when we come on back here after I tell you who the player to bank on is. Sponsored by Casino Matrix. Just drop in for gaming, dining, sports. Please gamble responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER. I was there last night, Casino Matrix, briefly for a couple of minutes. My player to bank on today, I'll just give you one before we get out here real quick. I'm going with the D-line. You said Chase Young earlier. John, I'm going to go with Nick Bosa. I think Nick Bosa's got to get home. Hasn't had a sack since the NFC Championship 2021. I'm banking on Nick Bosa after 5 QB hits of the 6 that were put on Jordan Love last week. I'm going with Nick Bosa as our player to bank on. We'll get your guys' player to bank on. And John Dickinson's boots on the ground, super reporter, when we come on back here, live from Levi's Stadium. Adam Copeland, John Lund, and Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown. It's the Niners and the Lions, and it's the NFC Championship right here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund, back with you live from Levi Stadium. You are listening live to Levi Stadium. Niners and the Lions for the NFC Championship at 3:30, just over 2 hours away from kickoff. At the top of the hour at 2 o'clock, we'll hand it over to Greg Papa and Tim Ryan. We'll check in with the broadcast booth and Tim Ryan momentarily here. After I tell you, it's 14-7 right now. 14-7, Chiefs leading in the AFC Championship, a minute 46 to play in the second quarter, so in the first half. So we are just about at halftime there, but the Chiefs have the ball 2nd and 10 at their own 11-yard line. So we'll see what happens and how this one wraps up. But Mahomes was moving the ball pretty easily early on and has stalled a little bit on their last couple of drives. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep you updated on the AFC title game, and we'll get you more on what's going to happen here. Niners and the Lions. John Dickinson, our super reporter right here at KNBR. He's here at Levi Stadium as well. He will join us next, only here on the Sports Leader.
John Dickinson, super reporter.
Pregame bound, these boots on the ground.
Oh, back here at Levi Stadium. Was that your voice?
Yeah,
was that John Lund? The pipes of a John Lund.
You get your own intro music. I like that.
How about that? A theme song for our guy, John Dickinson, super reporter.
We ain't doing that here.
Well, you did.
No,
Boots.
that's what I said. He said, we ain't doing that here. You broke in.
Good to see you, JD. How are you, man?
It's great to see
Tim, is he up? Is he on? Do we have a... I'm not hearing JD yet.
What a day. I mean, it is just a zoo in the best way possible out there. People are fired up. There's excitement. There's a buzz down on the field. I was kind of walking around just taking it all in as players are starting to come out a little bit for the early warm-up, and it just feels like two teams with the Super Bowl on the line. And I know you can see why the 49ers were so adamant this year, really from day one, in saying that they wanted this game to be here. They wanted the 49er fans to be here. They wanted this game on their terms in their home stadium. And, you just go back to 2019 and the Niners' ability to win in blowout fashion against the Packers. I know it's not same team, different opponent, all those things. But after the Niners lost the last two on the road, just being here is palpable in just kind of wandering around here the last hour or so.
Yeah, that's a huge word. Too powerful. But I mean,
an intro, you got to come up with some $100 words.
You kind of threw me a little bit there. I was thinking, how can I figure what that means? But I mean, you're in the media. I don't know how much you have followed this football team, but the last 3 to 4 seasons, this team has been in NFC Championship
3 straight,
position. Yeah. So. I mean, the intensity is there. You just kind of talked about it. You've been around. I mean, you felt it. You're around these guys in practice and things like. I mean, what's the vibe? What's the vibe you're getting right now?
Business and confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a team on a mission. I think they've felt like a team on a mission really since the 3-game losing streak in the middle of the season. I know they got tripped up on Christmas against the Ravens, but then they went and handled business the next week in Washington. They got the home field advantage. I don't think they weren't unbusinesslike in the game against the Packers. I just think the Packers came out, put a real good game on them. Maybe the elements were a little bit of a part of it, but finding ways to win is what championship teams do when they don't play well. And if you want to say that was a C- game or whatever it was, they still got enough stops, prevented the Packers from scoring touchdowns early. Brock had the drive when he needed to have the drive. And the 49ers, made some of their own luck, I thought, with the way that they just kind of hung in.
Shout out Harvey Dent
in that game. Yeah.
Shout out, dude. I make my own luck.
Exactly. And so the Niners were able to do that last week, and that's why they're here. I think they're confident this week. I think they believe that there are things that they've seen on tape from the Lions, especially on the offensive side, where they can put some points up. If they can avoid the critical mistake, I think the Niners think they can score a lot and move the ball a lot and hit them for big plays that, could have the potential to put the Lions on their heels in an environment that they're not familiar with as a whole.
Well, kind of what you just said there at the end, I think, is what's important is that Green Bay took the ball. And they won the toss. They took the ball. And Fred Warner was running out the field last week, pumping his fist like, you know what, we got this. We're going to stop these guys, go 3 and out. I think the Packers, and we're seeing this from the Chiefs, they got a flag or else they would have went up 21-7. But you gain early confidence. Or in the case of the Lions who are riding a great wave here, I think they're going to take the ball again, just like Green Bay did. They've done it 7 times this year. And that's on the 49ers defense right away to say, let's go 3 and out here. Or let's not have them score. And then you get the ball, and then that thing Kyle likes to do, the double up before the half and start the third quarter, you get the ball. I think that's a massive advantage, but only if your defense goes on the field and shows the Lions, hey, right away, this isn't it. You're not at home. It's a different situation. And I'm not going to say that the Lions are satisfied to be there because nobody is. And I don't like the term where somebody says you're riding with house money. They're not, because no one knows if you're ever going to get back to this point. So it's big to the Lions. It's big to the Niners. But I think the experience that you just speak of is a huge deal in a positive way. We were talking about this with Matt Mayoko. Could be a negative, could be a positive. Maybe there's too much, pressure on yourself. But if you come out, they want the ball, they get the ball, you stop them 3 and out, you turn around and score. That's what the Kansas City did today. Baltimore got the ball to start. Kansas City stopped them 3 and out, scored, and all of a sudden Baltimore went, whoa. That's what they need to do, because then the crowd gets behind them. There's a lot of blue here today, but the crowd gets behind them, start to put some doubt in the Lions' mind. I think early in the game is critical.
It is, without a doubt. And I think if the Niners can get on them early, the thing has the potential to turn into a blowout. I think if the Lions are able to get up, I think everybody gets tight, especially given the way last week went down. And, the Packers basically, we all thought, hey, Green Bay's going to win the game until the end. At least I did. Until the Niners went and did it. It just had that bad vibe.
Sitting next to each other going the whole way, especially after the Aaron Jones run, I was like, this ain't happening.
No. Well, and stopping the run's going to be huge. I know both these teams, it's what everybody preaches. You got to stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. But I think from the Niners standpoint, stopping the run is where everything begins and ends. When you look at the Lions, who I think will stay disciplined to the run, like they're going to come out and they're going to look to throw it, play action game, all of that, hit the middle of the field, but it's all predicated on the ability to run the football. We've seen the 49ers able to get Jared Goff off his mark, and when Jared Goff's off his mark, he can be somebody that's prone to either coughing it up or throwing an interception. Now, this is a really good Detroit offensive line, better offensive lines, I think, or offensive line for the Lions than the lines that the Rams had in his time there. But the ability to stop the run kind of make the Lions pass because they have to pass, not because they want to pass, I feel like is a key.
John Dickinson with us here at Levi Stadium. Niners and the Lions coming your way in about 2 hours, 3:30 kickoff for the NFC Championship and a trip to Vegas for the Super Bowl on the line. Before we let you go, JD, we got to have a conversation with Tim Ryan. We'll go up to the broadcast booth and talk to him in just a few minutes. Thoughts on the secondary for the 49ers? Because last week, I mean, it was slipping and sliding, yes, but Ambry Thomas is going to be a guy they target. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 1,500 receiving yards this year. They've got 4 guys with double-digit touchdowns. They've got electricity across the board, similar to that of the 49ers. But as John and I were saying, if the Niners play their game, I don't know that anybody in the NFL can keep up with them. They haven't done that against some of the best teams like Baltimore, but wondering about the secondary because that's where I think they're going to have a weak link and they'll be targeted early.
Ambry Thomas is vulnerable. I'm fascinated to see if Jair Brown ends up starting.
Yeah.
I think Jair Brown probably should start in this game, and I'm also interested in what they do with Lenore and Mooney Ward as far as did the Niners basically say, hey, Demo, you're going to you're going to cover St. Brown in the slot. Ward, you're always going to be the guy that kind of follows him around if he's on the outside, and try to limit those opportunities for Ambry Thomas to potentially get matched up, because I think the Lions are going to want to take, and I think even if it's not St. Brown, they're going to go after Ambry Thomas. So he's going to have to hold up, but if you get pressure on Jared Goff, he's a quarterback that doesn't, again, he'll throw you an interception. The Niners have had a bunch of pick sixes against him. They've forced fumbles against him. It's getting him off his marks and taking him out of his rhythm, which, prevents the game from, those easy throws over the middle and sort of picking out exactly where you want to attack.
Before we let you go, feel for this one?
34-24.
34-24?
Niners.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
34-20. And outside chance, I think the Niners could score a lot.
I think you can put up 40.
If they don't turn it over, I think the Lions defense is vulnerable enough.
In the
if you
pass
can
game
block
especially.
Hutchinson, they are vulnerable enough to where I think you could score 40 on them. And if you have to win a shootout, win a shootout.
Yeah.
I think they're overly aggressive. I think that all week talking about this aggressiveness and Kyle's nature to obviously be conservative, but it works both ways. And I think that they have a real opportunity, like you said, to make plays. And I think a lot of people are looking at the run defense going, you can't run on them. Look, both Tampa Bay and the Rams did. They just didn't do it enough. They had 17 and 15 carries in those 2 games. I think the 49ers, like you said, have a real opportunity. I think the beginning is very important. But, we haven't talked about Brock. Sunny skies is good news for Brock Purdy, man. Not having to deal with the rain. I think they're going to go 30-plus. And look, the Lions can score. They have a good offense. But I think that, like you said, I think that defensively, and remember, people aren't talking about this. They're missing their left guard. Their center's banged up. Their right guard's not great. Penny Sewell is out of this world, but they can take advantage. It's a really good offensive line, but it's a banged up offensive line.
JD, thanks for coming by, dude.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the game.
Appreciate the time. We'll talk to you after the game, I guess, either way.
Sounds good.
Would be the plan. We'll be with you back for postgame, of course. John Dickinson, super reporter, joins us here at Levi Stadium. When we come on back, we'll get more into this game. We'll also are going to do the Steve Young Show, our 49er Player Spotlight, and have a conversation with Tim Ryan before we hand it over to Greg and Tim at the top of the hour. It's the Niners and the Lions, the NFC Championship, and it's only here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland back here with your 49er player spotlight here from Levi Stadium. The NFC Championship coming your way in just under 2 hours. 3:30 kick right here on the Sports Leader. And the biggest star on defense last week for the 49ers had to be Dre Greenlaw. 3 career interceptions, including a pick 6 early in his career against Jared Goff, who we will see today. Also a big one against... who was it? It was Russ Wilson. That's right, in the Seahawks on Monday Night Football. That was a big one. He had 2 last week against Jordan Love to help the 49ers seal this victory. He spoke last week saying it feels great to get a postseason win, especially when you know you've been battle-tested.
I mean, it feels good, especially when you got a game like that and you put so much work in, and they're a good offense as well, so they're a good team. So, I mean, it was a battle, so it makes them more deserving whenever you go and you battle-tested and you got to go against, playing a game like that. So, I'm excited, and I just want to get the job done. So we'll go out there and we'll try to get the job done this time.
Big play, Dre Greenlaw. Don't forget about the tackle also with Eric Armstead on 4th and short, 4th and 1 to stop the Packers and turn it over for the 49ers. Dre Greenlaw, 2 interceptions last week, had that big stop on 4th down, and that's why he is the NFC Championship's 49er player spotlight. Steve Young, the Hall of Famer, number 8, joins myself and Tom Tolbert every week of the football season for the best half hour in radio. This week, Steve spoke about the 49ers' clutch fourth-quarter comeback and how the team has changed the national narrative regarding the 49ers' inability to come back.
Big comeback, last drive of the game on the line, go win it, is one of those fundamental pieces, things that's always on the list that's going to haunt you, or not haunt you, but people will use to, drive you crazy throughout your life if you don't get them done. And so knocking them down, Tom, is important for that, mental state that you have, the people, and it's also important that the whole organization can feel like, because remember, what was it, 0-30? When you see that, I had a number of people comment to me this week who had not seen that before and then saw that stat, and they're like, that is weird. Like, that's crazy. How is that possible? This is the 49ers. Like, what is this? I think there's benefit not just to the quarterback, but to the organization, to the coach. Because everybody was living that stat. Everyone's living that stat. And I think it could be, again, when turning the page, part of staring it down is we get to carry that
with us, and that's a huge net positive going forward. That no one can say we haven't seen that before. Well, now you have.
I think he's showing some of the stuff that he did in LA. You go with Jared, I mean, he played for a number of years, especially, I think 17, 18, really 18, played at MVP type level. When they give him a good scheme, when he's got good people around him, Jared's going to always find the spot. He's as accurate as any quarterback I've seen. He can play at a very top level. If you sit and make things easy for him, he will gash you. I've seen it over and over, whether it's with the Rams, whether it's with Detroit, and that's why you challenge it. You better be on your stuff or he can embarrass you fast.
There's Kyle Shanahan getting you back in. NFC Championship game. We're getting ready for the Lions and the 49ers. About 13 minutes. Tim Ryan, Greg Pop will take over from the booth. Take it from there. Jared Goff, though, I will say that the local product out of Cal and Marin County, different player indoors and outdoors and home and road, and that's what we've got today as the 49ers have a sunny day at Levi's Stadium versus last week the rain against the Packers. Let's go up to the booth. That's where Tim Ryan sits. He joins us courtesy of the Umagas side. What's happening? How are you?
Let's freaking go, Johnny Lund. Championship Sunday. And you're right about what you just said, and home and road. He's also a different quarterback when it's clean versus when it's dirty.
Dirty.
And today they got to get it dirty with some post-snap, pre-snap disguises, some post-snap rotations with the coverage. Just get him thinking a little bit. If he can hone in on what you're doing and he's got a good pre-snap indicator, on which you're in, he absolutely can carve up a defense. At his best when he's throwing those in cuts over the middle of the field, when he gets a rhythm. So the coverage has got to make him think just a little bit, and then obviously the rush has got to get home. It's time for a monster movie up front, and this D-line take a game over, especially on the inside. Most quarterbacks, gut pressure, when you can get them off their spot, get them out of rhythm, they're going to have some challenges, and that's what I see the 49ers trying to do today. But a huge, huge matchup and a big challenge for the defense.
Yeah, and I think this game is, and you know, me and you, we both know that in the trenches is where it's won or lost. And we've been talking about this defensive line. I haven't seen this defensive line take over a football game in quite some time.
Probably since at Seattle on Thanksgiving, I would think.
Right. And I think it's super important. And we've been talking about Nick Bosa, the end positions. Nick Bosa, of course, is going to be Nick Bosa. I think Chase Young has to have a huge game, especially after last week. You have that on tape. A lot of down blocks. You know, the edge, it was a soft edge. Green Bay was able to get around the corner. How important it is for Chase Young, not just his pass rush game, but his run game.
Well, I think when they anticipate it, it's a different story. When he's got his nose in there looking at the ball and there's no awareness that it's coming. And you know, back in the day, bro, someone lined up in a wing, you were getting a crack alert, and you were playing it.
Yep.
You were going into him, and there's no way a wideout, when you're prepared for it, or even a tight end, is going to be able to block you and create that edge. So I think a lot of it was awareness and not anticipating that it was coming, eyes looking at the football. Big part of the 49ers scheme, as you know, Dennis, is jetting upfield and trying to make everything bubble back towards their own goal line and buy some time that way. But there will be some awareness of that today, I promise you. With Jahmyr Gibbs, they're going to try to hit the edges with those inside and outside powers, pulling the inside players or the pin and pull. And a big part of it, too, is where you align your front. If they're going to run a pin and pull and you got a backside two technique, which means inside shade on the guard, nobody's on the center. He's got an easy angle and a free release and can go flat and get in the way of Fred Warner. So I talked to Fred this week. They'll get all that stuff cleaned up. I guarantee you they're going to see those pin and pulls and those perimeter runs. And once you stop it, and it's going to start early, I think you stop it a couple times and they'll start to move away from it.
What's up, Tim?
What's up, big dog? How you doing?
How we doing, man? I'm anxious. I'm anxious. I'm excited. I'm anxious.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know. I figured you were. That's why I needed. That's why I asked. I needed that reassurance that you were jacked out of your brain. Does experience in a game like this matter?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question. And Detroit is a great story, as you guys know. They're looking to get to their very first opportunity to party with Lombardi. The 49ers, of course, looking for the 8th opportunity. They've had to play. They've obviously got had to play and didn't get the off week. They're coming in sky high. I hope everybody for the 49ers woke up in a bad mood today and ready to smash somebody. This is going to be a physical brawl because both teams really play with the same mindset, which is ice bags for everybody and beat you up at the line of scrimmage.
Tim, tell the weather last week versus this week and the ability to Brock Purdy to play with a not wet football. How big of a deal is that going to be?
Well, I think you go back to the Cleveland game, challenges with the wet field and the wet ball. Last week, challenges started with the glove. There's no doubt I underestimated the rust, not just to Brock, but of the passing game. And when you go back and watch the tape, which I did a couple of times, it wasn't all Brock. Guys were slipping. He's a spot thrower. He's going to anticipate and throw to spots, throw to landmarks. And when the receiver's slipping coming out of his break or things aren't synced up, it's going to appear that he is way off and apprehensive and rusty, and he certainly was those things. But going back and watching the tape, to me, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was on game night against the Packers. Look, he had a great week of practice. Debo is a full go. I don't know, he'll be a big part of the game plan. I don't think last week he was a huge part of the game plan. That also factored into the way Kyle Shanahan was having to call plays when they lost him early in the game. But with all the weapons available and what the 49ers can do against that defense and Brock versus the blitz, that's, to me, the biggest thing. They're going to run blitz. And a lot of that, Johnny, is scheme runs. And Kyle anticipating where the blitzers are coming from in terms of the run-through blitzes with the linebackers and then be able to counter it with plays that can bust it. And Brock's going to have to get him into the right plays at the line of scrimmage with some of the can calls and some of the audible calls. Question for me is, are they going to play a lot of man coverage and send pressure? If they do, I think they're opening themselves up for big play opportunities all over the place. They have had challenges covering people with their corners and with their safeties and with their linebackers. When the 49ers are clicking and you're doing that, they're a freaking juggernaut. So I'm curious to see how much man coverage we see out of Aaron Glenn's defense today versus how much zone. And a big part of that will be predicated on their offensive success on the other side of the field. But I anticipate they're going to try to keep it all in front of them, try to rally up and tackle, and then the Yak Bros got to take over. Brock's got to be patient. Can't get greedy.
Tim, you think we see more Jair Brown today?
I do. I think youth and speed on the field is this offense has got a lot of juice. Jamison Williams can absolutely fly out on the edge and can get a safety off of the hash for sure. Josh Reynolds has made big plays. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the way they use him, you guys, and the way they move him around with all the motions and multi-alignments, a lot of plays over the middle of the field. So, T. Gipp keeps everybody, and Fred, with all the communication. They keep guys on the right page. I'm going to appreciate, I think, some youth and some, just more quickness, more sudden quickness. Logan Ryan brings a lot to the table, but I think we're going to see Jair Brown get a big chunk of plays today.
Real quick, Tim, just the beginning of the game, I think they're going to do the same thing that Green Bay did, whether they win or lose the toss. I think they're going to want the football. I remember Fred Warner running off the field last week, pumping his fist. He thought they were going to get 3 and out. Green Bay got a field goal. How big is that right at the beginning if the Lions take the ball? I think they're going to. And they can get a stop there and get the ball back.
It's huge, and obviously to be able to get off the field. We saw that in the early game with Lamar. Now, I don't know if they won the toss, but I know they got the ball. They did, and they took it. And Kansas City got off the field, and you saw what that led to the first half of that game, especially if the offense on their first possession can respond with a long drive and get some points. So much of this team is about complementary football, and that term gets thrown around a lot, but you guys have watched every play this year, and when the offense struggles, typically the defense is going to struggle because now teams can stay multi-dimensional and keep running it and be patient. A fast start, it not only will be huge towards determining the outcome of this game, but it'll be huge for the defense in terms of being able to get out there and make that offense one-dimensional and start getting after Jared Goff. This is going to be the first game, and I think they'll do it, because they trust their offensive line. Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, they trust that front five to block, even with the challenges they've had at offensive guard. A lot of 5-man protections. So, to me, Nick Bosa is finally going to get a healthy dose of one-on-ones, and I think he can get after both of these tackles.
Tim, we're looking forward to it, man. Have a great call.
All right, Copes. Let's go, man.
We'll see you afterwards, man. All right.
Start filling up the other hand. Come on.
Hell yeah. Start filling up the other hand. Niners and the Lions. The NFC Championship coming your way in about an hour and a half, a 3:30 kick. By the way, real quick check on the AFC Championship. Still 17-7 now in the second half as the Chiefs got a field goal before the end of the first half there and didn't get in the end zone after that holding penalty. So final thoughts, Dennis, for you on this one?
Final thoughts. This is, it's a big game, but it's got to be business, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's you just have to go out and execute. I mean, after all is said and done, all the hype, all the talking, reading the news clip, all that stuff. Now you just got to go play, and that's what football is about. If you go out and you execute, you work within the offense or the defense, you come out, winners. I mean, that's all you got to do. Just got to execute and understand what you're playing for. And this is it. This is what the 49ers are about. NFC Championship games, Super Bowls. Go out and do it.
I think they're going to play great today. I think I'm going to go back to one of your scores, 38-28. I think the 49ers put up a bunch of points. Look, I respect the Lions. I think that's a really good team, but I think they're going to bounce back. I think the weather's in their favor. I think experience is going to play a part. In the beginning of the game, the 49ers getting off to a quick start, putting doubt in Detroit's mind. That's key.
All right, we got the game coming up at 3:30. We will hand it over to Greg and Tim. They'll give you a recap of the season, where they've been, where they're going, and then they'll get you into the game. And we will be back with you after the NFC Championship, streaming twitch.tv/thesportsleader, YouTube, KNBR.com, the app, all that good stuff. Adam Copeland for Dennis Brown, John Lund. It's the NFC Championship. The 49ers and the Detroit Lions. How about this? A new team, sort of novel. We're getting the Lions. A lot of blue here, too. Could be once in a lifetime for them. It's the NFC Championship, and it's coming up next, only here on The Sports Leader.